Oh. Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hey, good evening. Sheriff Tony on 1 to 12.
Looking for Commissioner Harris and Commissioner James.
I'm here.
Hey. Everybody ready? Good evening. This is the Dania Beach City Commission virtual regular meeting. It is Tuesday, June 9th at 7:00 p.m. Can you please call the roll?
Mayor Llewellyn,
Here.
Vice Mayor Odman,
Here.
Commissioner Brandemart, you're muted. Commissioner Brandemart,
I'm here.
thank you. Commissioner Harris,
Here.
Commissioner James,
Here.
City Manager Garcia.
You're muted.
Okay, City Attorney Ansbro.
Here.
Thank you.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America
and
and
to
to
the
the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
Under
indivisible,
indivisible.
liberty, justice for all.
With silence for George Floyd. Close the door, Dion.
And also, would you join me in a moment of silence for George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor?
We can't hear.
And would you please join me in a moment of silence for George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor, and all of the others that like them who died unjustly. Thank you. Next is presentations and special event approvals. First item is presentation by Sheriff Gregory Tony on community relations efforts. 34.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. This is Sheriff Tony. And let me just say, forgive me if it seems like I'm shouting. I just want to make sure we all can hear the message that I'm going to provide in terms of an overview of some of the things we've been focused on in this agency. It has been well documented and accounted about the horrific incident that occurred up in Minneapolis, where we had a white law enforcement officer take the life of an unarmed black man. It's once again here in this country, and that has been something that has continued to plague our ability as law enforcement officers to gain and maintain the community's trust. This is not something that is new to me. It is not something new to this country, nor is it something that I was going to wait and see happen here in Broward County before we started to institute a very stringent level of holding our men and women accountable for the times when they would step out of line. And I open up with that because this, again, has gained a great deal of national attention. But from Broward's sheriff's standpoint and our command staff, we were not going to wait and see someone brutally killed on our watch. And I would have to backtrack and remind you all, over the last 18 months where I've been the commander of this organization, I have had a multitude of incidents related to my men and women utilizing excessive force on individuals, and I've had to terminate them. At times even going against our professional standards committee to ensure that we would hold people accountable who would elect to beat people in handcuffs or would elect to slam our youth face into the ground or choke slam 85-pound-year-old. This is unacceptable. My personal life, I have been through this long before I was the sheriff. I was a young man being slammed on the ground in Philadelphia with a knee on my neck. And so to see this continue to occur tells me we are on the right track for a multitude of things we instituted in this organization. To begin with, and I want you all to share this with your community. Last year, coming into this organization, an early warning system that would allow us to examine and pick up on any bad behavior or patterns of abuse from any of our deputies was not up and active. It has been shut down for roughly a year. We had to re-examine that early warning system, modify it so that we can track and catch and prevent these type of incidents from happening. That has been in place, and we have seen success with it in terms of tracking deputies who maybe have one or too many types of incidents involved in use of force or any type of level of application of force that may be considered an issue. In addition to that, looking at the size and scale of this organization, we're roughly 5,700 employees strong. We're spread across 1,300 square miles, and we cover the public safety responsibility for half of this county. And one of the things I've seen very early on was that we didn't have a comprehensive use of force review board. And what does that look like? A use of force review board that we instituted several months ago allows us to examine all use of forces that occur in any of our cities beyond the scope of your district commander. So what does that mean? Your captain may have an evaluation process that we have in place related to use of force. He gets to examine it, so then it comes up to our use of force review board at the administrative level, where we again put 5 more eyes on this thing to make sure that it was done correctly. It's another level of checks and balances that most organizations at this scale and size have in place, and it just made all the sense in the world for me to create this and put it in place in our organization. We also noticed that a professional standards committee that has been part of this organization for roughly 30 years now had quite frankly lost its integrity. And what do I mean by that? We had way too many cases of disciplinary action that was being presented, things such as beating someone in handcuffs as they're in a medical facility. The Professional Standards Committee, which is comprised of both law enforcement and civilians, would put forth recommendations towards my office for me to decide on, such as a suspension. That is one of the most grotesque things that we can do in law enforcement, is to assault people in handcuffs. And I had to go against that Professional Standards Committee a multitude of times last year, which finally got to a point where I dismissed all acting members of the Professional Standards Committee, and I also went out and hired a new chairman of the Professional Standards Committee. For the first time in this agency's history, the chairman is a judge. Judge Julio Gonzalez has served Broward County for quite some time. He is a reputable and honorable judge who understands the balance between the administrative side for law enforcement as well as the civilian side for people who are participating on this particular Professional Standards Committee. If you haven't paid attention to the news over the last few days, you probably missed a comment about how much unions are influencing the ability of law enforcement administrators to actually hold people accountable. That is true, not just at what you're seeing on the national level, but it has been true here at the Broward Sheriff's Office. And that Professional Standards Committee allows for the union representation to be part of that committee. And there had been a bullying effect inside this Professional Standards Committee, where union representation had often helped convince other civilians and even law enforcement officers to put forth recommendations that are not consistent and not fair. And so, as I stated before, we not only brought in a judge to bring balance to that, but I also brought in an entire new staff of members that sit on the Professional Standards Committee. In addition to bringing in new staff from the administrative level, my majors and captains, we brought in an entire new group of civilians who are qualified, competent to make very, very strong arguments and analyze these internal affairs investigations and be able to, put forth an argument as to why we should terminate, why we should discipline an employee in a particular type of fashion. We currently, for the first time, have a U.S. attorney, former U.S. attorney prosecutor who is part of that civilian review board. We have a labor management expert who has served the county for almost 30 years, if I can recall correctly. And we also brought on another attorney in the private sector to bring a little bit more balance to this thing. These are key elements that we put in place that has given us an opportunity to be more transparent with the community. But in addition to that, one of the key things that we have fallen behind on for several decades now is the ability to introduce comprehensive training when it comes to dealing with the minority population, which is a significant population here in Broward County. And so just a few days ago, I had called multiple meetings with the Broward Chiefs of Police to get us all on the same page to introduce both racial equity and implicit bias training for all of my deputies. I originally invested $500,000 into that project to ensure my men and women would get this training. But having seen what we just witnessed in Minneapolis, it only makes sense that the entire county gets on board. And so I committed $1 million to launch this program, not only for my men and women, but for every law enforcement officer that serves this county. We are continuing to put these things in place. There also been much discussion about, what core things we're doing that are consistent with the rest of the big initiatives that are being pushed out across the country. For example, you probably heard about the 8 Can't Wait movement, which outlines 8 core things that can be introduced into law enforcement in terms of checks and balances to help mitigate any type of police violence. And we have done those things. They've been in place for some time. in terms of we will not allow for any form of chokehold maneuvers to be used in our policies to apprehend or detain someone. We also mitigated and incorporated a multitude of de-escalation techniques with standard to make sure that we're doing everything to reduce any type of physical altercations or application of force. Of course, one of the core things that they also outlined on the 8 Can't Wait campaign or initiative was to require warning before shooting. That is also part of the standard protocol and procedure when feasible for law enforcement. I think one other element they talked about was to be sure before we actually get into any type of shooting that we exhaust all the alternatives. This is not new to law enforcement. This is consistent with what our men and women are trained in the academy and what they continue to get for renewal training every single year. And then also the aspect that the officers have a duty to intervene. In the set of circumstances that we witnessed in Minneapolis, many have noticed that several law enforcement officers stood by and did nothing. So that is a policy violation at the Broward Sheriff's Office. But more than it being a policy obligation, it is a human obligation to intervene. And so I will not allow for any of these types of things dismissed as if I'm not doing it, the other deputy's doing it. That doesn't work in this organization and most certainly will not work for me. Another element they talked about was shooting into vehicles. We do not allow for our officers to shoot recklessly into vehicles. We have policies in place that manage that. You're talking about life and death certain set of circumstances for that to be required. And even then, we are not going to go out and allow it to be a policy element that we support. We will not. There was also about the seventh one was the discussion about establishing a use of force continuum. What the public needs to understand is that has always been in place for this agency and specifically for Broward County, as the Broward County Public Safety Institute is putting our men and women through the exact same training that they would put through Fort Lauderdale because it's regulated through the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. That's non-negotiable. The last element that's listed on there is talking about the requirement of all force to be reported. I talked already that we have both a requirement at the localized level for district chiefs to report any type of application of force, but we now supplemented that with our administrative examination of it with the use of force review board. And of course, all those cases that result inside of turning into an internal affairs investigation will be followed up through our professional standards committee to once again ensure we are in compliance. I give you all this overview, but I will tell you this, regardless of all the checks and balances that we put in place, this is going to come down to leadership and whether or not the leadership, and this is on myself, is going to hold the men and women accountable for not only complying with policy, but for quite certainly making sure they comply with decency. And so I've established a very stern practice here, a very high expectation. I am not going to yield. I will not conform to any set of bullying effect or any type of combative elements that may come from union representation so long as I'm the sheriff here. And so you can echo that out to your entire community. And with that, I'll pause and take any questions you may have.
Vice Mayor, no?
Hi, yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on and sharing this information, Sheriff Tony. So I guess my question for you would be, after talking to some people who feel like this isn't enough and that reform isn't enough and that the change needs to go deeper than that to really be effective, what is it specifically that you think that makes you think that these actions are going to be enough to change what is such a deep-rooted problem in this system?
Well, look, in terms of the checks and balances that these are things that can be handled at an administrative level. But the application of force, excessive force, these are things that are driven by a multitude of different variables from a societal standpoint, including institutional racism, individual prejudice and biases, and really things that really might expand outside of our scope. People are trying for a more stern approach. And I can tell you from this office, we have introduced more severe consequences and more clarity in terms of managing and tracking these things than probably anyone else in this entire state. But with that being said, if there's any expansion for what can be done, we're going to have to start looking at some real hard checks at a legislative level as to what the state is willing to afford and provide as safeguards and measures for our law enforcement members out there who are serving this community. And that conversation goes much beyond Broward County. I think it's interesting that we have examined now for almost 2 weeks that there has been a consistent message across this entire country and even outside on the international level that oftentimes that the balance of holding men and women accountable that are law enforcement personnel is not the equivalent to that would be called for civilians. So, I think the discussion point that goes from here is not whether or not BSO is doing the things that we can do, but, when I terminate an employee, for example, there's an arbitration process where they may come back. There's an element where they can be considered for decertification by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. But those are things that, are outside the reach and scope of me as the sheriff. I would like to see more stringent practices take place, both by FDLE. I would like to see arbitrators, be much more thorough in examining all the facts and understanding what's occurring and why it's important not to just give people a slap on the wrist when they violate the public trust and they take people's lives, just to be held criminally liable, just like anyone else.
Sheriff Tony, this is maybe more of a specific question, but can you speak to, I work in health at Memorial, and when I see, BSO bring in Baker Act and things like that, it's raised the question before, for things that as they do pertain to mental health in the community, do you think that BSO is the best equipped to be handling those kinds of calls, or is there other ways that could be more successful in handling that?
Well, I think often people forget, we are out here wearing a multitude of hats already in terms of not just law enforcement, but we're social workers, we're mental health care providers, we're counselors, we're marriage counselors. It goes on and on. There's a multitude of things that we have to be prepared from a psychological standpoint to be able to manage and handle. One of the things that we did last year in conjunction with our Sheriff's Foundation is to put together a mental health care summit where we brought in all the experts to provide more training, not only to our law enforcement personnel, but to our civilian partners on how to effectively handle someone who's suffering from, a mental health care issue. In addition to that, we've expanded our CIT, our Crisis Intervention Training program for our deputies. My goal, and I think we currently have almost roughly 900 or so out of our law enforcement personnel in our Department of Detention who are certified as Crisis Intervention Training Specialists, is to be the first agency that makes sure every single law enforcement officer that is sworn in under this organization is certified in these areas, because it's critical. It allows us an opportunity to recognize certain behavior patterns that are not necessarily criminal, but be more indicative of someone who suffers from a psychological problem. And that changes the dynamics on how we treat people and how we interact with them. In fact, I've seen some of our body-worn camera video of our deputies who were Crisis Innovation trained, CIT certified, and they recognized and handled a set of circumstances where, I think if we had a junior deputy who was not trained and experienced, it probably would have led to a level of force. But instead, they were able to communicate effectively, they were able to de-escalate and take people into custody without harm. So we're going to continue to push that forth. That is an initiative I launched about 10 months ago to be the first agency where everyone is certified in CIT training.
All right. Thank you for that perspective, Sheriff Tony. I appreciate you.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner James?
Yes, good evening, Sheriff Tony. Listening to the conversation and understanding how protests have really gotten the attention from many politicians across, America, and understanding now the tone that I'm hearing frequently is defunding the police department, which doesn't mean disbanding the police department, rather allocating or reallocating certain funds to ensure that we have programs that are going to de-escalate situations. Because although you have the proper training and you can have the proper training, we saw what happened in Fort Lauderdale, just a week ago with officers and dealing with these types of situations where high emotional, high stressful situations where I think our officers have to do a better job at de-escalating or not ignoring, but understanding the environment that they are in and the duty that they have and hold. Has BSO had any conversations with any other cities about possible defunding of the police departments in their areas, in their city?
No, I can tell you I have not had any communications with any of the chiefs of police throughout Broward County in terms of defunding. I've had my own internal community meetings with stakeholders throughout Broward County to discuss some of their concerns and community leaders. Defunding came up in terms of, well, would I be willing to defund certain elements within the agency? And my response was clear. Defunding, law enforcement capability and response protocols is not what this public needs to have in terms of what some things are recommended. We have capabilities to respond to threats that are real world. School shootings, terrorist attacks. I still get intelligence reports from the FBI. Riots that occur for sake of truly being agitators and disrupting public property. We have to have some of these things in place so that our men and women can be successful in safeguarding this public. I think one of the things that had came up in my discussion with some of our community leaders, for example, was to remove the ballistic body armor and face masks and shields from our personnel. And my counter to that, and it will be consistent, is, well, let's think about that. There were rocks being thrown. There were fireworks being fired off at these men and women. And how are we going to mitigate their harm and ensure that we safeguard the public without the necessary tools to be successful? What I will agree with you on, and what I stated then, and I'll state it again, we currently operate with roughly $1 billion operating budget to safeguard this entire county and perform our mission. We can utilize more of those funds to bring forth programming into educational opportunities, to bring forth programming that build and bond more community relations and help get some of these young people off the street and get a better understanding. And that's what I am doing. That's not what I plan to do. That is what I'm doing. About 6 months ago, we launched a new Broward Sheriff's Office Youth Development Program where I interjected roughly $250,000 of the law enforcement trust funds into this project to get it started. And I'm going to be presenting amongst our county to see if they will be willing to put forth a line item in my budget that will give me an opportunity to expand these things throughout the entire county, not just for segments of our county. So I agree with you. It can't just be all, guns and shields and the materialistic things that we need to safeguard both us and the community. But we need to start being much more creative about how do we keep these conflicts from happening and how do we keep people out of jail for miscellaneous offenses.
Sure. Yes, I wasn't speaking on defunding as in eliminating or reducing the amount of protection that our law enforcement has, because I know, quite frankly, no police department is going to defund themselves. That's not a decision that, you're going to go and make on yourselves, but rather, just like the vice mayor was saying, I think that certain attempts are just not enough. We've been dealing with this for longer than I know. And the only difference is now we have footage that shows what happens. And so I want to make sure that the programming that we are bringing really induces a change locally within our communities, within our areas that are predominantly Black, within all of our areas, but especially, with what's going on right now and what's been going on. Being a Black man yourself, understanding the importance of having more programming, more understanding, more officers that can relate to the communities that they serve, and just really allocating enough funding in those areas to see a positive change within our communities.
Yeah, listen, I agree 100%. And I'll tell you, once more, I didn't wait for this tragedy to happen because I've lived it in my whole life. And this is part of why I've reinvested and built out our new neighborhood support team to get our community more involved in relationships with the agency. I put us back on foot patrol under our Park Walk and Talk program so that people can get a chance to get out of their cars and get to know the community and who the people are that they serve, so that they're not just responding when things go bad. So they're not afraid of the young black man that wears a hoodie, but understand he's a football player and he's listening to his headsets on his way home every day. These are little things that go a long way when we're talking about reducing that conflict and helping bridge that gap. And you're right. It's one thing. I'll say this very clearly. Yes, I am the first black sheriff in 105 years. First in 105 years. And so I am not only obligated to speak and act on these issues that not only has been a burden for me in my life, but to make sure that if I'm going to lead this administration and lead this agency, that the people underneath me understand it and are following in the same path.
Thank you.
Commissioner Harris.
Good evening, Sheriff. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for your service, and we honor your years of experience and your service. So speaking as a resident and an elected official here in the city of Dania Beach, of everything that we're talking here about tonight, what is the advice of one thing that we can take with us tonight that will help us in our work tomorrow?
I think one of the most potent things you all can do right now is not turn a blind eye on this 30 days from now. For every time we have a tragedy in this country where there is a officer involved in killing unjustly a black man in this country, we all say prayers, we all say it's wrong, and then we move on. And so as elected officials, as leaders that we are all working together on, we can't dismiss this again. This has been something that has plagued this country for hundreds of years. We fought our way out of slavery to find our way into Jim Crow. We fought our way out of Jim Crow to find our way into segregation. We fought our way out of segregation to go to the civil rights. And yet we're still fighting the same issues from the 1960s in 2020. And I quite frankly think is because when we fight, we don't fight to the finish. And if we're going to defeat systemic racism in this country, if we are going to bring balance in law enforcement, in not only law enforcement, but the entire criminal justice system, because our courts have issues and so do our corrections. If we are going to defeat this and make our community safer, more balanced, more equitable, it's a fight for the long haul, not for 30 days. So I would encourage you all to stick with me on this because I plan on fighting it every single day, and I'm not going to slow down. And so we will invest the money the right way. We will put the necessary checks and balances in place. We will hold people accountable. But this is a message we all need to be screaming together out to our communities that we serve. And I think that is a powerful message. We talk about long-term strategy and not short-term responses.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hands up. So thank you, Sheriff Tony, for coming tonight. I know you have a very busy schedule, and I appreciate you taking the time to come and speak to us and our residents about things that you've been doing in the sheriff's office to help with this.
And I will stay engaged with you all. I will keep you informed. I will keep you included on the things that we're doing because I am very sincere in knowing that this is going to take everyone, every single one of our cities, every single one of our elected officials to hold hands and unite and get this done together. And we'll lead it up from our standpoint, understanding that we are the tip of the spear for this county in terms of public safety.
Thank you, Sheriff. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
The next item is supposed to be a presentation by the Dania Beach Clergy Alliance. I have received a couple of messages that I think we're going to have to table that. Pastor Wiggins ended up having a conflict, as did Bishop Scott. I know Bishop Scott just got a delivery. There's going to be a food distribution tomorrow at St. Ruth's. So they've been kind of busy with that over there. And I know Pastor Wiggins had another meeting as well. So we're going to skip that and move on to presentation by Andy Diaz, founder of Creative Emotional Intelligence Project. Is he here?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
There you go.
Hi, how are you? Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, City Manager, Commissioners. Please forgive me for anything I say that might be misinterpreted or misspoken, simply because we know that you all bring so much experience in your fields and in the way that you operate. I don't function at your capacity, but I will introduce myself so that maybe you can understand a little bit why I'm covering this. But before I do, I'd like to say a quick prayer to whatever it is that you carry on the inside before I move forward. I believe anything we get done together. I believe that that's what makes this country great. I believe that democracy has everything to do with unity and people coming together for the right ideals. I think that what created this country has a lot to do with our highest version of ourselves. And so if it's okay with the commissioners, and please tell me if it's inappropriate, I will reconsider, I will continue. So thank you so much for letting me know.
Thank you.
And so I do have a planned presentation that I'll be going through and just kind of explaining a little bit about who I am and why I was invited here. And so my name is Andres Diaz. I'm the founder of Creative Emotional Intelligence. And this comes from being a former United States Marine 10 months after 9/11. I have 17 screws in my face and 3 titanium plates. I've had to make friends with my physical and emotional pain. It's a very difficult topic still to talk about, simply because I have to go back in time and really reflect on what that looked like, training for war, seeing my friends come back disfigured, emotionally, physically, with other people's limbs attached to their bodies. It's not an experience that I think a lot of people can relate to, but I think something we can relate to is the fact that we've just come from a very significant emotional event, which was the social distancing over COVID-19. And I think a lot of us experiencing the separation, the anxiety, the stress, the emotional overwhelm. Sometimes we didn't even know what we were feeling, you know. So we really, there's some people that I've heard that they're getting divorces because this kind of stress on the emotions on the inside has been so significant. And what we decided to do from the very beginning, which was in March 11th, we decided to seek higher guidance and higher power. And in that, we were basically directed to give our services for free on Facebook while everybody was on their knees. People were alone. I had grandmothers that couldn't see their daughters and had never been alone. I had sisters and brothers that were living in community or together where the kids were literally doing all kinds of things. And there was very little tolerance, very little patience for what this looks like. And long story short, we were able to help 450 families in 42 states by myself. And that looks a lot like the power of what we can do when we come together. And I say that because I've had to deal with social distance alone for the last 7 years of my life. You can consider me a world-leading expert on social distancing and on emotional pain and overwhelm, simply because as a former United States Marine with PTSD and chronic depression and a few other things that you guys probably felt, like anxiety. Maybe you felt anxiety over social distancing. Maybe you were unsure of what you were thinking. Maybe you even picked up some addictions that, we wouldn't know about, that you probably keep to yourselves because they're so difficult. It's so hard to cope. And most of us have not been taught how to do that effectively, especially what to do with our anger. A lot of times our anger makes us yell at people. It makes us people that 30 minutes later, we ask ourselves, gosh, I really wish I would have done something different. It makes us do awful things. It makes us feel critical. It makes us loathe one another. It's so much so that it almost seems like our mind has become addicted to problems. And I had to learn about how addiction works through my recuperation from the Veterans Administration. So after my time in the Marine Corps, I came out a very toxic human being, still treating people like a Marine during a wartime situation. So that looks like the screaming, that looks like the yelling, that looks like the drinking and drugs. I mean, that looks like experimenting with self-medication. And I didn't know I was self-medicating. I tried the best I could until at about the age of 27, 28, I attempted my first suicide attempt. And little did I know that maybe a few years later, I tried again 2 more times. And so I'm here with you all because something, a force greater than me that is in all of you has brought me here together with you. I don't know, I don't have all the answers, but I do know how I remember part of my healing was recognizing that I was addicted to problems, that my mind would focus on creating problems, and it was addicted to it. And if I tried to answer that problem, my addiction could only satisfy itself by creating another problem. And I couldn't see a way out of this. It almost felt like I was living in hell. It felt like I was living in a toxic environment that was constantly creating problems in my mind, and that there was no way out of it. And the only way out of it was to yell at somebody or to scream at somebody. And that's some of the behavior we're witnessing with our colleagues. I have an office space. I see it in my office space. We're trying to help people all together. And it's very difficult to be able to take a moment and see if you can distance yourself from that problem in the mind. Because unless you're aware of it, like Mr. Rogers says, he says, what is nameable is manageable. But if we cannot name it, we can't tame it. And that creates a lot of problems for us. And those problems create problems at home. They create problems with our kids. They create problems with our jobs. Some of us are so stressed, we don't even want to do our job. Some of us are so stressed, we can't even have another new thought, or let alone have a moment to feel something different for our friends and our family. And it's very, very difficult. And so as the founder and creator of Creative Emotional Intelligence, I've had the opportunity to see what an addiction is. And I'll share it with you all. An addiction is short-term satisfaction in exchange for long-term suffering. So I was satisfying my anger by creating problems when I'd go to the street, when I'd go to the bar, when I'd go to my friend's house, when I'd go to my family's house. It seemed like I was creating problems, but I was in full denial that I was the problem. And I couldn't see it until another suicide attempt. And then I had to give myself up entirely, go to the VA and learn about mental health. It took me about 2.5 years, and I learned how addiction works. I learned how all this stuff works. And one of those things that the mind does is that it wants something for nothing. And that's a problem. It wants instant gratification, and that's a problem. So what we need to do is flip that addiction, because we all have it. We're all addicted to problems. Our mind is. And what we need to learn to do is simply recognize when our mind is creating a problem and not react. Because if we react with another problem that the mind creates from unexpressed feelings, you're feeding the addiction exactly what it wants. And there's your satisfaction. More problems. And we can't function as a country like that. We're seeing what happened over COVID-19 with, the whole entire globe stuck at home with their pain and their suffering, and not knowing that they have a mind that's addicted to problems. What were some of your experiences at home? Was it difficult to be with family? Did you have a hard time looking on the inside and maybe recognizing that there's room to grow? Did you maybe pick up a new habit that might have been a healthy one? Or did some of these feelings express themselves in negative and toxic ways? And those are some of the conversations I have with the 450 families in 42 states that we were able to serve over COVID-19. And then what happened to Mr. George Floyd happened. And now you have this built up toxicity, which I think everyone can relate to, express itself in a liberating way. Young kids and young people and people of all ages, of all colors, doing whatever they can to recognize that enough is enough in terms of the injustice that we're seeing in our communities, but we're still feeling it. And these feelings don't go away because we are with our feelings 100% of the time. And maybe all of us, how do we express? We talk. But what percentage of your day is there someone to talk to? Maybe 20% if you're lucky. So 20% of your experience can express. The other 80% is depressed. And because you don't know what to do with your feelings in a creative, alternative, and healthy way, you yell at your colleague. And your mind creates problems. And it's addicted to doing this because what is an addiction? It is short-term satisfaction in exchange for long-term suffering. And this suffering looks like the division that we're seeing in our entire country, where we have Black and brown people pleading for white people to look at their situation with empathy. And white people looking at Black and brown people like maybe they don't deserve it because this thing has been the way it's been since forever. But I have news for everybody. We're living in a new world. And in this new world, we get to define what a new citizen looks like. No one can tell us what it looks like. We get to start looking at what our problems are, and we get to own up to them first. Because you can only do for somebody else what you're willing to do for yourself. So in creative emotional intelligence, we've had 450 families, parents, teachers, sons, daughters, grandmothers, grandfathers, uncles, aunties, cousins, brothers and sisters learn to see the problem, not react, but because you're left with that feeling inside, to do alternative forms of self-expression. And the reason why I know to do this is because I have spent 40,000 hours of my life transforming my pain in a positive way. It's the one thing that's kept me alive, because what we know is that 20 veterans commit suicide every single day. Ladies and gentlemen, do you know why that is? It's because they're drowning in their feeling. I would imagine it's not just veterans. I would imagine it's children too. Because if you can remember when you were a child, maybe watching Mr. Rogers or Captain Kangaroo or whatever you watched, you were all in your feelings. Your whole entire life experience had everything to do with what you felt. And then you learned to think, and that became you. And now the problem is everything you're addicted to. And so what we need to learn to do is to understand that there's a new alternative in this new world. So allow me to explain a little bit about what that looks like for everybody here, if you don't mind, because I think this could be very healthy for all of us. And so if I cut myself off at the head, please forgive me. And so creative, emotional is E-motional, because we have to learn to become scientists of our emotional experience. We need to learn to become emotional scientists first, so that by experimenting with these emotional signals, we can transform our pain in a positive way. I've done it, and I know you can do it. It doesn't matter how old you are, whether you're 8 or 80, we've done it with 450 families, and I think our oldest was 96. And so I get to bring myself to life in this moment by sharing with you all what creative emotional intelligence has done for a suicidal, broken, PTSD, chronic depression, borderline personality disorder veteran. I should not be alive, but there's a higher power working within me that allows me to have this present moment with you. So please, thank you so much for your patience, and please allow me to continue to share with you. And in the next few moments, I think we can close this up. if you just lend me your attention for a moment. Creative emotional intelligence. What is creative emotional intelligence? Well, in order to define it, are we able to see that okay? Just making sure. I don't know if you can see it okay. Maybe I need to pull this up a little bit closer. Is that okay? Can you, I mean, it looks backwards, but it's what we can do, right? So we do what we can because that's important. And so creative emotional intelligence tells us that we have to figure out what is the creative part, the emotional part, and the intelligence. If any of you know, intelligence is our ability to solve a problem. So if we were to say what's 1 + 1 = 2, that's called mathematical intelligence. So for emotional intelligence, we need to recognize that there's a difference between feelings and emotions. What would you say is the difference between feelings and emotions? Most people say they're the same thing. Most people say I have feelings and then I have emotion. Some people say I got these things that are like I know but I don't know. And what happens there is because we cannot agree that 1 + 1 = 2, everybody has a different answer. So one person will argue with the next one saying 1 + 1 is 17. No, 1 + 1 = 32. No, 1 + 1 = 75. And that's the addiction to problems, because our feelings don't have an alternative. Because again, we're with our feelings 100% of the time. But if only 20% of the time you can express by talking, what are you doing with the other 80% of your life? That tells us we need to address what we're looking at. So now that you got to see why emotional intelligence is so important, we need to separate that feelings, and these are the things that we teach children and parents. The feelings are on the inside, and emotions, which is energy in motion. Remember, we got to become emotional scientists. Emotion is energy in motion. I am energy in motion. That is on the outside. So what we help people do is that on the inside, they can discern what they feel and then learn new emotions. And an emotion is simply a prediction that your brain makes. For instance, what are the last 5 feelings you felt? And depending on what those are, that's telling you what the predictions you're going to make in the future for any given situation, whether it's good, bad, or neutral. And that could be very destructive, because if your last 5 feelings are anxiety or boredom or stress or depressed or lonely or sad or anxious or critical or judgmental or disgruntled or dismay or disillusioned or perplexed or hurt, how are you reacting to the world if 80% of you is still on the inside unexpressed?
Mr. Diaz,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna need to have you wrap up quickly. We have a couple of questions and then.
Yes, absolutely. And so what is the creative part of all of this? Is that we can see that we have feelings on the inside, emotions on the outside, and we need to become accountable for both. Because when we learn to account, we can become responsible. And when we can respond and have the ability to respond, then we can make new decisions that are going to create new opportunities for the city of Dania Beach as the first city in Broward, looking at the future and being a model city for the unity, for how all of us, we may not agree on everything, but if we can have a seminar where the whole staff comes together and learns creative emotional intelligence, and one commissioner creates poetry with this or art with that, and literally we have a workbook that allows you to do this, so you don't even have to try. It's all already worked out. It took me 7 years to do this, and that's why we're in 42 states. And so the creative part tells you, if I were to say, draw a happy circle might look like this. Right? That looks like a happy circle. If I were to say, draw a sad circle, it might look like this.
You are nuts.
Mind you, if you're impatient right now, please don't create problems. You're feeding the addiction. And if you are angry, maybe angry looks like this. What that tells you is that your feelings have a creative outlet, and that no matter who you are or where you are in your life, this creation has to take place. You have to release. You can't just inhale and never exhale. And so the reason why we're bringing this to your attention is because we have a mission to create legislation that will require the public school system to dedicate at least 1 hour a week teaching our children that are experiencing COVID-19 from the social distancing and the anxiety, that are feeling things. It's not just children feeling them, it's adults too. And that's what I've discovered in this work that I've been doing over the last 7 years. Most adults ask me, Andy, why isn't this for adults? And that's a difficult question for me to answer because I'm passionate about children. I'm passionate about our future. You know, I'm passionate about leaving them an opportunity where they've cultivated a creative, emotional intelligence sufficient where they're going to create their own answers to their problems in the future. They're going to have a Dania beach that's going to have incredible things simply because they can express their pain and cultivate a creative relationship with their feelings. And so I brought this to your attention simply so that together we can understand that this is completely new thinking.
Okay.
You know, innovation is going to take place. And it's up to us to take that responsibility. And we have to do what we wouldn't in full faith of not knowing. It's not logical that you know, because you haven't done this. You didn't have to live through PTSD. You didn't have to have 17 screws in your face. You didn't have to live in social isolation for 7 years. You didn't become a Grammy Award-winning music producer like I did and become, you know, someone known in the music industry by literally healing from my pain in a positive way. This has saved my life, ladies and gentlemen. And if you are starting to see that maybe you are too quick to, your addiction in your mind creates these problems, I would love to do a workshop for every single employee so that we can see what emotional transformation looks like. Because a belief is a poor exchange for an experience. And I believe if we have one experience of this kind,
Really
everybody can see what's possible.
been speaking for a very long time, and I have 2 people that have their hands raised. I need to have their questions asked, and then we have to go. We have a lengthy agenda tonight.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Commissioner Harris, did you have your hand raised? You're muted. There you go.
So thank you for your presentation. So when we have a friend or a spouse or a coworker who consistently seems angry, and they might be what we call a rageaholic, who is addicted to the power they feel when they're in a rage, what is the best way to diffuse that situation as quickly as possible?
You know, I think education is everything. And I don't believe we were taught. I don't believe we were taught emotional intelligence in school. But we live in a very emotional culture where so many new thoughts are constantly coming in. We're just emotionally overwhelmed. All of us, we're exhausted. Do you feel the exhaustion? Do you feel the stress? And that's not just them. So in a situation like that, where someone is addicted to the rage, I would just help them see, you know, you should go see a mental health therapist, because that could really help you begin to see that. And then also come learn creative emotional intelligence as a supplement for their feeling, because an emotion is not a problem. It's just a signal waiting to be interpreted. But if all we know how to interpret is via speech, and there's no one to talk to, those feelings have to come out. And if they come out in toxic ways, it just shows us more profoundly the need that we have to address the lack of creative expression, whether it's through music, creative emotional intelligence, and emotional expression, but we have to cultivate this in our people, and we can do this. It's already here. And the only question is, you know, when can we start? Do we start with, we can start anyway, any way you'd like, Commissioner. So I'm at your service as a Marine, as a father, and as someone that understands that there's an alternative to expressing pain in a positive way. And we have hundreds of testimonials. I believe the city manager has a list of about 450 testimonials from all around the country. So we've done this, commissioners and mayors and vice mayor. So if you would allow us to experiment just and create that experience, I understand fundamentally that your beliefs would change and that we could come together for this very important reason, Commissioner. I don't know, did I answer your question, sir?
Yes, you did. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Brandemar, you had your hand up.
I sure did. Mr. Diaz,
Yes,
with
ma'am.
all your experience, I want to know, do you have any kind of education to be teaching this to us? Do you have a PhD? Do you have, what do you have?
Universities will be learning from me, Commissioner, and I'll explain to you why. As I was going through the VA for those 2.5 years, learning from the top experts, because PTSD is the worst and most significant debilitating disease. What I didn't share with you all is that I have spent 40,000 hours of my life with music. And music creation taught me things on the inside that as I was looking at the things they were teaching, my intuition was telling me, why aren't they, like, I know this, but how come they're not talking about transformation of anger? And why don't they know about transformation of fear into, and I started writing it down. I started writing everything they didn't teach me that I already knew. And now we have 500 testimonials, Commissioner, that says this function of alternating, of developing an alternative form of self-expression makes us feel good because it has everything to do with self-esteem. And self-esteem and self-image are primordial for someone. If a bad person does bad things because they believe they're a bad person and that they're identified in a community where they have to do those things. But if we can get them,
I understand, but I did not get an answer from you, Mr. Diaz. I asked you if you, like a vice mayor, is a nurse. I'm a nurse.
Correct.
She's a lawyer. He's an attorney. I want to know if you have any degree after your name to be able to teach what you're teaching. And by the way, these are all covered in anyone's insurance policy that they have without them having to put out money. You could get psychiatric care because a lot of this is this. And I also am smart enough to know that, post syndrome cannot only be from being in a service, but it can be from any trauma in anyone's life.
Absolutely.
Okay, I understand that, but again, I want to know, do you or do you not have a degree?
I'm the creator of the curriculum. I do not have a degree. I do not. No one can teach me what my life experience has taught me, Commissioner.
Really?
No.
I feel the same way about what you said. No one can teach me my life experience about when my mother lost her right arm in a car and I was in it.
Absolutely.
But I don't go out and talk to people about it. I admit I hold it in. Now and then I'll confide in someone something that's bothering me.
Yes,
but
ma'am.
I don't have a degree, so I don't look to go into a city and ask to be a seminar person when I don't have a degree. What I do have is better than a degree, but it's still not a degree. And that is the life experience.
Amen.
So no, I do not buy into creative emotional intelligence seminars unless the person that is given it has a degree, like the sheriff that was on. He could just talk about what he wants to do, or anyone else that's invited here. This to me was more like a psychiatric evaluation for our entire city. That's all it meant to me.
And that's fair, Commissioner, because
Thank you.
logically, that's at the level where someone that doesn't have experience, Mr. Rogers actually wrote a song about this. And I know it might be trite, but it's really not. His song said, "What do you do with the mad that you feel when you feel so mad you could bite? When the whole wide world goes all so wrong and nothing you do seems very right? What do you do? Do you pound the bag, or do you pound some clay or some dough? Do you play a game of tag or how fast you go?" And then he said these very wise words, and Mr. Rogers does have a degree. He has a degree in child education.
I was
and-
just going to say that.
Correct. He has a degree in child education and music. And I'm pursuing a degree in child education. But he said these very important words, which if you are not a creator, no one can understand. He said, "It's great to be able to stop when you've planned the thing that's wrong." And a lot of us, we've never been given an opportunity to plan for something when something goes wrong with our feelings. So Mr. Rogers said, "It's great to be able to stop when you've planned the thing that's wrong and be able to do something else instead." But what do we teach our children? We don't teach them something else. Only a creator of music production and helping people. I live in that world. If you don't live in that world, Commissioner, it's not logical you could understand. You can understand psychiatry, but not creative emotional intelligence. And so I'll continue. He says, "I can," and then now he encourages the future youth, because Mr. Rogers was here so he can do this forever. He said, "I can stop when I want to." These are the words he would hope a child in the future would say. "I can stop when I want to. I can stop when I wish. I can stop anytime." And what a good feeling it is to feel like this and to know that the feeling is really mine. Because Mr. Rogers wanted to teach children about that good feeling, Commissioner, of control. It feels so good to control our pain. It feels so good to be able to do something about it. And then he finishes the song by saying,
I've had enough of this, really, I do. I'm sorry. I think you're a great, motivated speaker. I really do.
"Thank you, Commissioner."
You're like Joel Osteen, but I'm here to do the work of the city, and we spent too much long time on this subject. So, Mayor, I'm telling you, in the future, I think you better put a time limit on your speakers.
We do. This is not my speaker number one, but we do. We have a time limit of not more than 15 minutes.
Well, I wasn't briefed on the time limit.
That's right. I bet he wasn't.
Otherwise, I would have respected it.
Right.
Okay.
I agree.
I do apologize to everybody.
See a couple of hands up if there's anybody.
Yeah, me.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi. How did you find Dania Beach?
Yeah.
I just want to know how did you happen to stumble across Dania Beach?
I grew up in South Florida.
No, how did you get to this meeting? Let me be more specific.
Yes, a good friend of mine at the Children's Trust put me and the city manager together 2 years ago. And
Okay,
little by
thank you.
little, it's allowed us to come together at this moment for what's happening with George Floyd and social distancing and the emotion.
Okay. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
City manager? Here. Go ahead.
I want to see how this program works in Miramar. Miramar is going to be engaging with this program. I invited him to speak tonight. My bad. I don't remember if I briefed him, so I'm going to give Andrew the benefit of the doubt. But I thought it was kind of interesting, the whole topic of emotional intelligence. So I just would like to see how this program works in the city of Miramar. And thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Can you hear me? Is my phone on?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Diaz, thank you so much first for your service and thank you for your presentation. I'm somebody who does live in that space that you talk about of creativity and emotions and poetry and music and thoughts and feelings. And I understood a lot of what you were trying to translate, which is an exceptionally difficult thing to try and do, to translate to the political platform of politicians and formalities, where feelings don't and creativity don't naturally exist on the dais. So I appreciate your attempts to do so, and it was really interesting and thoughtful to listen to. And with what the city manager said, I look forward to seeing more information about how your program does, and I'll be looking to hear from the city manager to hear how that program does in Miramar. So thank you for coming in tonight. We all appreciate you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for everybody. I was unaware of the time. I'm here to respect everybody's time and patience, and I appreciate your patience in return.
No worries. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
All right. So next item is the special event request from Tim Butler, Director of Marketing for Dania Point, to host a Salute to Seniors event to honor local graduating high school seniors from the class of 2020 to be held at Dania Point on June 20th, 2020 from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. The applicant is requesting special event fee waiver of $150 for the event.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commission. Myself and Raquel Williams, the Executive Director of the CRA, have been working together with Kim Butler. We know that this has been a very challenging year for the seniors of 2020. So she's cast a wide net, not just to our local seniors, but seniors throughout the surrounding communities. And it's going to be a really, really good event, and basically doesn't require a lot from us. As we get closer, we'll give you more information. But I do believe that Kim is also on the meeting, but I highly recommend it, and I know Raquel does as well.
Okay. Any issues, any questions?
I make a motion to approve the item.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Approved. There are no proclamations tonight. I don't have any citizens' comments. Is there anybody watching who wants to raise their hand? Does anybody else have any citizens' comments that I'm not aware of? No? Okay. Public safety report. Go ahead, Captain Mark. You're unmuted.
Good evening, Mayor. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. We just came off our Alpha Bravo schedules, which means all of our sworn were placed on 12-hour shifts with no days off, which gave us 20 to 30 deputies at any given time. We've since come off of that. We had all our deputies at points of interest and critical infrastructures. We were accompanying fire rescue to routine medical calls. While the curfew was in effect, we made four arrests for the curfew violations, 2 of which turned into felony drug possession charges. Last Friday, there was a protest and a march on 441. Numerous resources were utilized in order to keep the protesters safe. Law enforcement personnel from Dania, Seminole PD, Hollywood, Davie, and FHP were on scene. 441, Griffin Road, and the freeway exits were closed down while protesters peacefully marched. Last week on 6/2/20, we set up an operational plan to recover a stolen motorcycle from Southwest 26th Ave, which was being sold by a suspect on Craigslist. When the suspect arrived on scene at the Tri-Rail parking lot, he was detained without incident, and the motorcycle was recovered and returned. Another case, the subject was observed in a rental vehicle in the rear of Tropical Acres bordering Whispering Oaks, where we've had numerous burglaries. The vehicle was stopped as it left the area, and the driver was from Pompano, and he had no explanation for being in the area. Cannabis and heroin was located in the vehicle along with numerous jackets and sweatshirts, and he was charged and transported to jail. Are there any questions?
Commissioner James?
Yes. Hey, Captain. I wanted to know, are we all good for Thursday for the Justice March?
I have not received a route yet.
Okay, I'll get that. I'll get that to you in the morning. Is that the
Okay.
only thing that you need?
I don't know how many people we're expecting.
No, I don't know either.
And I just want to make sure that everybody's safe during this and nobody's impacted.
Okay, I'll get you a route in the morning.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner James, maybe you could tell him what the route is so he can get sort of a heads up of what to expect?
I've spoken to him before. We've spoken that it was similar to the MLK route. For everyone that is listening, we'll go down, start at C.W. Thomas Park and go down to 5th Avenue and go north to Griffin Road, go east on Griffin Road to Federal Highway, go southbound on Federal Highway to Sterling Road, and then west on Sterling Road to the old feed store. What street is that again? I keep forgetting. Third.
Finish line.
Third. And then we are going to go back north to City Hall. So that is the route.
Okay, is this going to include closing down roads?
Excuse
Or
me?
is this a sidewalk?
It's going to be similar to the one that was on 441, a half of the road, not the full road.
All right, that's going to create a couple issues, especially at 4 p.m. on a weekday. But we can talk about that tomorrow.
Sure.
Vice Mayor? I'm sorry, Commissioner Brent already first had her hand up.
Yeah, I didn't even know about that, the march, but now I know. When you say it's gonna be like the MLK, that means it's gonna go on Federal Highway South at 4 o'clock. Is it a little dangerous or not? If they don't close the road? Shouldn't it be closed like they do for MLK? Or at least have police in front?
Are you asking me?
Commissioner,
You asking me or Captain Mark?
No, you,
I'm sorry.
Tamara. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, yes, that's why I said similar to MLK. So
Yeah, so there'll be
half
police
of
in
that.
the front.
Well, I think Chief Marks really needs to answer that question because it's his deputies that are.
He asked it
Oh,
to me.
I didn't
so I was
think
just
that he
answering.
could answer it. That's why I asked Commissioner James. Can you answer it, Danny?
Yes, ma'am.
right.
We'll have to close it down, but I'm gonna have to call in resources from other districts and pay a good amount of overtime because that's shutting down pretty much the whole east side just to keep everybody safe because I don't want anyone getting injured.
Just so I know, thank you.
Vice Mayor?
So I'm so confused because I feel like I'm the only one at the table who doesn't know what's going on.
Me either.
Whose march is this? Because you're all talking about the march like you all know what the march is.
Not me.
I don't know anything about the march.
No.
And then I thought on Thursday you're saying it goes to City Hall. I thought we were starting walk-up testing for COVID.
Oh, I didn't know anything about that.
Right.
It's
No,
not this Thursday.
it's something the city manager is going to be talking about today, but I don't even know that that's necessarily the day. But how does everyone know about the march except for me? Like, what meeting did I miss that you all know
I
about
didn't
it?
know.
I'll speak on it. No issue at all. I received the call. No, I received a call from a few people in the community that asked me to come to a meeting to help. They wanted to have a march. And so I said, okay, I'll come to the meeting. I got to the meeting. I was invited by Larry Black and Ivy Pure. It's their march. It's the community's march. It's our march. It's not Commissioner James' march. I got to the meeting. Anna was at the meeting, and so was the mayor. They were at the meeting. I don't know who invited them to the meeting. I can't speak of who invited every single member, but it wasn't a city meeting. I was invited by community members. And then I was asked to help support this initiative. So I did that. And then we had a follow-up meeting on Monday. Again, I didn't invite anyone because I was invited myself. It was a follow-up meeting yesterday, and that's when we came up with these things. But no, the community reached out to me and asked me to help them go on the march or organize the march. So
Okay,
that's how.
It sounds great and wonderful, but maybe I don't know. I'm putting the question kind of to you, but I guess it's not to you. I'm pointing at you. Sorry, Commissioner James. But maybe whoever's considered the point person for this, have they thought about? We're on the 5th day of an increase in the cases for Florida in COVID. Are they concerned about that at all? Are there any precautions that they're taking?
Yes, well, everyone is basically asking everyone to be prepared with masks. I got with another organization who will have sanitizers. Everyone's going to have facial coverings. I mean, that's about it when it comes down to, what preparations that we have with COVID. I mean, there have been thousands of people at different protests. We didn't go into the meeting specifically talking about, the COVID spikes or anything of that nature. People are responsible adults, and I think that if people don't feel safe, they're going to stay home. And if they want to be a part of it, they'll come out and support it.
Okay, all right. Are we going to get more? What time does it start? Do you know, Commissioner James?
4 o'clock. It starts at 4 o'clock at CW Thomas, and then it'll go around the route into City Hall.
Okay, thank you.
Can I add something?
Go ahead.
The amount of attraction that this is getting on social media, I don't know where everybody's going to park, which might create another issue over there if it starts at CW Thomas.
Well, that was my initial concern. If you remember me speaking on it at the meeting that you were at, that was my concern. My advice, or I suggested that we started at City Hall because we have a parking garage, but I was kind of outvoted on that. They wanted to start it there, and that's what I said from the beginning. But that's what it is, and it's 2 days away.
Well, the other thing I have is we're going to be technically shutting down all of southbound and westbound traffic on 2 major thoroughfares. So I'm going to have to call in like 40 deputies just to block roads, just to keep people safe.
Whatever.
I don't know. Well, what's the question for me? I mean, a protest or a walk isn't supposed to be comfortable. It isn't supposed to be as efficient for everyone. That's what it's about. It's about bringing awareness. It's about, demanding whatever you want to demand and what the message is going to be, and to provide visibility. I mean, on a sidewalk or on back streets does not provide the visibility that a protest or a march is supposed to create. And so I understand that it's going to take additional resources. I thank everyone for their services. I expect it to be peaceful. This is not supposed to be something that is going to be violent of any magnitude. I've called on pastors and men of our community to be a part of the march to help so we can police ourselves. But I'm not super concerned about calling on deputies and having to pay them overtime because we're going to have to shut a road down. I mean, that's what a protest is for.
Can I
Right, but we have to shut the roads down to make sure that everybody can peacefully march and protest, which
Correct.
I think is great. But we still have to do that to keep people safe.
Yes, I agree with you.
Can I add something? First of all, I want to clarify. I was invited, as was the city manager and Captain Mark, by the Clergy Alliance, because we had a meeting with them a couple of nights earlier, and they invited us specifically to that meeting because of like they wanted us involved. So I want to see if we can come to a compromise here. And I agree that a protest is supposed to disrupt. It is supposed to disrupt what's going on in order to get attention, and that's a good thing. And I want to get it done, and I want to make sure that we're able to do it safely and do it in a way that it works well. And I'm not worried about individuals being violent. I don't think we're going to have that. I really don't. But at the same time, if this is getting a lot of traction, if we don't know where people are coming from, that's also a little bit concerning. My bigger concern is if we're looking at closing that much of federal, there are people who are going to be coming home from work who are literally going to be stuck in the tunnel for hours while this is going on, potentially. And in other protests that I've seen, there's usually an alternate route that's available for people so that they can get home or get to where they need to. It's out of their way, don't get me wrong, but it's disruptive, but it's not impossible for people to get from point A to point B. I'm concerned that it could become more of an issue for the people, especially the people that live over in that northeast area, because they're not going to really have any other way to get home at all. And they're going to be, I remember when the vice president went to Jackson's and how upset people were. And that was a short period of time that they were stuck in the tunnel. And people were really upset. I mean, really upset about it, angry about it. And I don't want people to be angry at the protest. That's the last thing that we want here. We want this to be, something that makes a difference and helps to move towards change. And I don't want to see it create animosity. And I want to get to where we want to get to. And I know this is important. I know this is important to Commissioner James, and I want to get to where we need to get there. So I'm trying to see if there's a way to maybe compromise this. Is there a way that we can do it on a little less part of a US 1? Go down a different road, have an alternative route that might have a little less impact on US 1, still be disruptive, but not be to the point where it is impossible for people to pass that really need, they have no other way to go. And the other concern that I have is that this is going to be incredibly expensive and we don't know how many people are coming. We may not know how many deputies need to be there from different locations, and we're paying all this money out when we're in the middle of COVID and we don't have resources, we don't have the money coming in right now, we don't have the revenue coming in, and then going to spend all this money. I'm concerned because not only are we spending extra money on COVID things that we need, resources for COVID, but also I know we have programs coming up this summer that we also need to be able to fund, including summer camps and some other things for people that have to go back to work and their kids are going to need to go someplace. And I don't want to end up having to take away from those sort of things in order to pay for the extra deputies. And I want to get to where we can do this. I'm not against it. I think it's a good idea. I want to move forward with it. I just want to make sure that we can do it in a way that it's safe, that it is not going to cost so much money for the city that we can't recover from it. And I also want to make sure that we're able to use the resources that we need, and we're not creating more division because we're making people angry over it. So is there something that we can do to compromise that? Maybe move the route a little bit further south and do a little less on US 1?
Well, I'm not at liberty to speak on behalf of the group.
You're not. Right.
This isn't my protest. Again, this isn't something that I created. This is something that I was invited to, just like you were invited to it. And they welcomed all comments at both of the meetings that I know that you attended. And although I understand that we want to take you want to come together to take a less invasive route, I think that doesn't send the message that the community is trying to send. I think that going down back roads, it decreases your visibility. And so, in my opinion, I think that it's going to stay as is because it's 2 days before. It's been up there. We've met a few times on it, or a couple of times on it. I've had several conversations after that, and I'm not at liberty to make that decision for those other people, and I will not make that decision for other people. I know it's going to be uncomfortable. I know it's not the the most effective way to get home. You might have to be delayed by 30 minutes, but people's lives are delayed forever. People are planning funerals, those types of expenses during COVID, having to funeralize their people or their loved ones with limited people that are attending the services. And so I think that I'm not at liberty to even answer those questions. I really am not. If this was my event, I would be able to speak on behalf of it. But from the community of whom I've spoken to, I think that they want to leave it as is.
Okay, just first of all, I just want to say, I could not comment on this at the meetings because I didn't want to violate sunshine, because you were at the meeting, you were speaking, and I was not going to violate sunshine. I spoke to council about it before I even attended the second meeting. I didn't realize you were going to be there for the first meeting. And so I made that very clear at the meeting that I was not going to say anything. I didn't feel comfortable because I didn't know if it was going to be something that needed to be addressed. So as far as that's concerned, that's one thing. Now, I'm not saying that you should speak for them. What I'm saying is that as a city commissioner and as a commission, since this is now before us and we're talking about it, it might be a situation where maybe we can either discuss it amongst ourselves and determine what we think will be the best way to go with this. And I certainly am not saying just use back roads. I still say you can go on US 1. I'm just asking if we can do it in a smaller area, just so that it is using fewer resources, so that we can still have monies that we need for other programs this summer that we do need to have, and also so that we can manage it better. That's all. It's not. I'm trying not to make it a problem. I want to have it go forward. I'm absolutely for it, and I've already said I'll be there. That's not the issue. And I want it to be. I get the disruption part, and I want it to be disruptive because that's what it has to be. I'm just saying, do we need to make it as disruptive? Plus, that's a long stretch, and it's going to be a lot more than 30 minutes of people waiting. I think it's going to probably be more like 2 hours, 3 hours of people waiting. It's a very long stretch, and depending upon how many people show up, it could easily be 2 to 3 hours that people are waiting in traffic, and that's the concern. There's other people with their hands up. I just want to get to everybody. Commissioner Brandevarty?
Yeah, you know what's concerning to me? That I can get a phone call from you, from the city manager, knowing that you three went to that meeting and 2 days before, I'm just being made aware of this. And Lauren's over there thinking with her head that we were all part of this. I don't know if Bill was aware of it, but we live on the east side of Federal Highway. And I'm surprised that's why I didn't want to do that report on our city manager. And now I'm glad I did it the way I did it. I was deserving of a phone call to be told about these plans. That's what I mean by this. I don't hear nothing, but yet we could get phone calls even from Danny about an accident that happened. And all of you are still chiming in on what's happening in this accident, which is in total violation of ethics. And you've all been warned by the city attorney. You can't do that, but you could do that. But you don't tell me that you went to a meeting that I know nothing about. What is this kind of stuff? And stop, Danny, with that answering of questions to all of us at the same time. It's a total sunshine violation. Ask the city attorney right now. It got to stop. And as far as you, Mayor, saying about, first of all, it's not Commissioner James's march, so she can't change one bit of it. And the way, if I'm listening correctly, that this march was planned and it was orchestrated by our own residents, they were well aware of the fact that going on Federal Highway is going to shut down traffic for hours. But you know what? They did. Everybody that did marches in New York and everywhere else, it shut the traffic down. I don't think you're going to need all these extra cops. I don't see our city being so militant like you're making it look like it is. But I have issues over 2 of you, 3 of you attending a meeting and leaving 3 of us out on what was going to happen 2 days from now. That's all.
City manager?
Yes, Commissioner Brandemark, and this goes to everybody because I want this on the record. I want you to know that I was invited to this meeting based on information that came to me that our resident, Ms. Ivy Cure, wanted to do a march. So like anytime somebody wants to pull a permit to do an event, that's what came to my attention. It wasn't my meeting. I was invited to that meeting unbeknownst to me that there was even going to be another elected official.
When you found out, why didn't you call me?
I didn't know. The mayor asked me to come. 1 second, let me finish, please. 1 second, please. When I got there, Commissioner James was there. Raquel Williams was there. The chief was there. So none of us knew who was going to be there. Okay, for the record. I went to that one meeting. I had no idea that the vice mayor was not invited. I had no idea that you had not been invited because this wasn't my event. I was invited and I went just like I would be invited by any resident or any of our pastors to come to their church to discuss a possible event. Okay, so I want to make that clear to you. I did not know who was going to be there and who wasn't going to be there. At the end of the day, the chief of police has to be the one because he's a subject matter expert on safety. And I think we all want to get to yes here, okay? But we need to get that recommendation from our chief. So I would appreciate, please, if you don't throw this responsibility on me, because I had nothing to do with this, okay?
You should have called.
Anybody could have called. But it's okay. I'll take that responsibility if you wanted me to. But I went what was going to happen when I left the meeting, okay, from everybody that was there, was that there was going to be a march from the park to City Hall. I have not seen any route. No one has communicated to me about any route, okay? It is now, today, that I'm starting to hear that this is going to go down Federal and possibly down Sterling, and you can approve whatever route you want. But my responsibility here is to make sure that the chief of police says what the concerns are and that we invest what we need to invest to make sure that the people are safe. And that's what I would recommend.
Commissioner Harris? You're muted.
So who exactly is the applicant for this peaceful protest? Is it Ivy or is it Larry or who is it exactly?
I don't know because I haven't seen an application.
There's no applicant.
Well, then who is the organizer?
I just told you who invited us to the meetings. They invited the same people to the meetings. I was invited to the meetings by Miss Ivy and Larry Black.
Okay.
The mayor was invited by the Clergy Alliance. That's how we got into the room together.
Okay, so there's a particular start time. Is there a particular end time?
When we get to City Hall.
Okay.
So we don't have it in time.
When we get to City Hall.
I understand, but we don't know how long that's gonna take, and it's gonna depend upon how many people are there.
Okay.
The people advertising this are Hear Our Voices Florida, which were the ones that did the 441 and Griffin one, and their end time was 8 p.m.
Commissioner James, did you have something else?
No, I just I don't know. I just wanted to say that it wasn't something that we all were to invite everyone else. Like I said, I was invited there. I didn't know that the city manager or the mayor or even chief of police were going to be there. I thought I was meeting with pastors. Obviously, we all thought the same thing. I understand where Commissioner Brandon Marty and the vice mayor is coming from. Maybe there should have been some communication, but that communication could not have come from me. as I am a commissioner here. However, I don't think that this is an item that is to be approved or not approved by the commission. This is just something that is happening in our community, led by our residents. And so I'm trying to figure out the end goal here or where we're going with this. I mean, we were part of a meeting that set the route. We briefly discussed the route. We also discussed what was going to happen and who the speakers were going to be once we got back to City Hall. And anyone could have shared that information, however they wanted to share it. I've shared it on my social media, and I look forward to having a great Justice Walk on Thursday. I think for us to make this big of a deal about how big of an impact it's going to have or how much of an inconvenience it's going to be on our residents, however we decide to light up City Hall up in green in remembrance of George Floyd, I think is very contradictory. So if we're going to make as bold of a statement about Mr. Floyd and his untimely death and not even get the sentiments or the concerns or, we didn't even have consensus to even do that. I don't know, like I said at the CRA meeting, I don't know how everyone else felt about it. I don't know if the city is going to put such a bold statement on behalf of all of us. We definitely should have put our input into it. But now that has happened and we've taken that bold of a step, now we're trying to shrink the march that our residents are putting on. And I think that is distasteful, and I think that is disrespectful to our residents who's doing that. I know that we have an obligation to keep our city safe, to keep our residents safe, to keep our law enforcement safe, and our protesters safe. But I think that we have to be careful of the messages that we are putting out because they are very contradictory of what we are voting on behind closed doors, or not behind closed doors, but in these meetings.
So, Vice Mayor, you're muted.
And look, I appreciate that, Commissioner James, but you said, what is our end goal here? And I think if you're hearing a lot of conversation, it's just because, well, I want it to be successful. I want this march or whatever the group envisioned it to be. I want it to, I don't know, you said, we're demanding whatever we're demanding. Well, I don't know what you're demanding. I want to help you get what you're demanding. I want to help it be successful, but I guess all the questions are not meant to be disrespectful. It's meant to be so that when everyone's marching, it's going in a route that there's nothing bad happens to anyone. I put a resolution that's on later on about protecting protesters and allowing them to protest peacefully. I'm here for it. I believe the mayor when she says she's there for it. Maybe we're not all there for it in exactly the way that people want us to be there for it, but we're there. We're here. We're here at the table. So I think from my end, I'm just trying to get if there's anything that ID or now I guess Captain Mark saying also hear our voices needs that we can be more helpful to make the message heard, and that's all what the conversation is. It's not to bully anyone into trying to get consensus or to do anything different. You say this is what it is, okay, fine, that's what it is. I'll be there at 4. I think other people on the commission will be there as well because they want to be supportive, but they just want to know what it is and to help it happen safely. That's all I think it is. I don't think it's any disrespect.
Well, I've said it, like we're still discussing it. I've said it at the beginning. I said it at the first sentence of discussing it, of what it is, where it's going to happen, and how it's going to happen. And what we're talking about, what we're demanding or what this community really needs or what America really needs. They need to have conversations, and those conversations have to be uncomfortable conversations and relationships that start right here and on our dais. And I'll continue to say that.
I agree.
We don't have those uncomfortable conversations because too many people, we get offended, we get in our emotions, and people don't hear what we want to say because they hear our emotions. So that's number one. We have to have relationships. We have to have dialogue. We have to have conversations, and we have to start supporting legislature, and we have to start supporting, different policies within our own city that fight discrimination, that fight all of the poverty and the systematic oppression that we have in our city and in our state and in our country. That's what the demand is for. The demand is for making sure that our police officers are held accountable for their unjust actions when they act accordingly and they are not protected by the law. And amongst other things that we constantly vote against as a commission for these same communities that we're now standing up for. So not just saying it, but doing it through policy, doing it through how we vote as an elected body. And I want to do more than just show up at 4:00. I want to start putting funds back and stop taking funds from the areas that need it the most. I want to start changing policy to ensure that we have a sustainable economy in those areas and to ensure that we're not being discriminated against. And I say we because I am a part of that community. It is, and I continue to say it's very scary raising a Black son in America right now because tomorrow may be his day. And I know you all don't really understand my passion, and maybe some of you all think that I'm angry or I have misplaced anger, but it's very frustrating to see some of the things that happen in our city, in our country, and in our world to people of color and Black people. And we are fighting the same fight that we've been fighting since slavery. So that's the frustration of many people. And that's why we want to be able to come together and for everyone to be able to support policies that protect the people of this country.
I hear you, Commissioner James. And I appreciate what you're saying. So would it make sense to you that the next step after this march, being that the march isn't even, it isn't yours, that maybe we all come to the table as policymakers and let's do something big. Let's do something impactful. You were talking about defund the police. I'm not advocating for defund the police, but that's an uncomfortable conversation. And there's a reason people are having the conversation. So maybe that's something we should be talking about. Maybe we should be talking about those programs that you're saying we're passed up, we're not funded. Let's have that conversation. I think we can only have, I think that's a workshopable type of thing, but is that, in your opinion, is that the next step that we take after this march?
Yes, I think that we need to sit down with our community leaders, and I think that we need maybe have an advisory board that's a cultural advisory board or something that you have different people from different cultures. They come and they tell you their experiences, and we listen to an advisory board because oftentimes we have advisory boards we don't even listen to. And so we need a meaningful, impactful type of relationship with our communities and with our clergy and everyone else that we're going to have these uncomfortable conversations. And I think that is the starting point. Being able to be in a room and have uncomfortable conversations and leave those rooms without wanting to kill each other is where it starts.
Well, I'm with you on that. I agree. I mean, I think right after this march, I don't know if that's going to be something you want to put together.
The clergy is already working on it. So.
Okay, great. So whoever it is, let's bring that together and let's make that the second step, and then let's start making the plan. I mean, we're up here for the policy. That's what everyone's here for, is to crafting the policy in the direction of the city. So let's listen to the voices and take that and make some good policy and put it into place.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess you're going to have to work it out with the police and probably also with Park through the city manager to make sure that everybody's on board, because it sounds like there's questions about logistics. So, Commissioner Harris, did you have a question?
I do. I mean, I totally support your mission and the eventual outcome for what we're going to do. But if we start at the park, as a planner, and because you used to be a planner, do you need a stage? Do you need a sound system? Do you need a microphone? Do you need water? But I mean, how can we help you? how can we help you? I mean, we need water for, it's going to be 100 degrees. What can we do along the route to help make it better and to make sure that we're helping? What do you need from us?
I would advise that you all call Larry Black and Ivy Cure, because I'm not the spokesperson for this march. They do have organizations that will provide water. Feel free to provide water as well. They will have people that will have garbage bags to pick up the water that is being disposed of. I don't know what else.
About a sound system or a
We're gonna
stage?
good old bull horns that this isn't an organized one with they're gonna have a DJ playing and all of these things. This is not that.
Well, I'm just asking, so,
It happened last minute. It literally happened last minute.
Yeah.
I was invited to a meeting on Friday or Thursday or Friday. So there's not really time to get a stage and get a permit. And there is no budget really for this. So, it's not a grand event like that.
I have to say something. Sir James, I do think that you can make some decisions here, because my understanding was from the initial meeting on the 4th, I think it was, that Thursday, you were appointed as the person who was going to take the lead on this.
Ms. Grace just blurted that out. No one voted on me taking the lead on anything.
You then held a meeting on Monday to talk about logistics, and it was your meeting. So I'm trying to, I know it's not your event, but it's my understanding. That was my takeaway from last Thursday, and it was my takeaway on Monday as well, that you were the one who was putting everything together and dealing with the logistics on it. So, and people were asking you questions as to, different things regarding, water and masks and all of those things. So I feel like you can answer some of these questions, and we shouldn't have to reach out to the other residents who aren't here tonight. I don't know if they're here tonight. I don't see their names anywhere, so I don't know if they're here or not. I feel like it is something that you could.
What question do you have that I haven't answered, Mayor?
You just said to Commissioner Harris, he asked you some questions. You said that he reached out.
I answered. I said there will be water and we don't need a stage and we will use a bullhorn. I answered the question, so I'm asking you, is there any question that I have not answered that you have?
I'm not asking you questions.
Okay.
There have been several people that have asked you things, and you have deferred them to go to Ivy Cure or to Larry Black. And that's why I'm just saying, I kind of feel like you could answer whatever questions people do have here. That was kind of what it's been set up so far.
Is there any questions that anyone has that I have not answered? Great. I don't know what else questions are. So.
All right. So where are we on this? I guess
4 o'clock, C.W. Thomas Park, Thursday.
And you will discuss further with Mark?
I've discussed everything. I'm going to give him a phone call, but I've discussed everything here. I'm going to give him a phone call. If he wants a written map, I can do that. But I don't understand why I feel like I'm being interrogated.
I'm not. I absolutely not interrogating you. I'm trying to get this to work.
It's working. It's 4 o'clock at CW Thomas Park on Thursday. I don't understand what other question there is. It's going to end at City Hall. It's the same stuff that you've heard in both meetings.
And the route is already planned.
I don't understand.
City Manager, you had your hand up.
Yes, I just want to make sure that the chief gets the route, and we're going to make sure that we make this as safe as we can make it. We're not going to ever go the bar on the safety of the participants. We support the march, but we more than anything want to support the safety of all involved.
Okay.
I see the city attorney. Oh, sorry.
City Attorney has his hand up. You're muted. You're muted, Tom. Tom, we can't hear you.
Please make sure that you get out those BSO reader boards tomorrow to warn people of the likely need to have a detour.
Nicole read about that the last time.
But the reader board, whatever you can use, so the people that are going to be affected by this, you minimize their disruption to them. I get why you want to do it on federal holiday, and that's okay, but at least people should be given the courtesy of a warning by the reader boards, code red, whatever we have. Monica calls, please. Thank you.
City manager?
Yes, we'll do what we do with everything, and in the future, use me. Use me for logistics, use me to help you, because every single event that I have been involved in, we've been able to do it and do it right and do it safely. So we will make sure, like we did before on the one on Griffin, that we put the information out, that we do a code red. We've done more code red in the past 15 months than we've had since code red has been in place. So we're going to make sure that everything that we could do in regards to communicating, now that we have the big picture. I can't communicate when I have fragmented stories. Now that we have everything and how the route is going to go, then we can take action and invest in the safety to make sure that it's a successful march and the objective is reached.
Okay.
Hi,
Anything?
Diana.
Mark? Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Brandon.
Yeah, so are we telling Danny, I'm hoping anyway, that to do whatever he has to do in order for everyone to be safe, so that he now knows what he should do? Because this all started out with Danny's question. So let's give him his rights on what he should do. To
I
make
always do. I always do. The chief of
talking to the mayor.
I think this is more than the city at this point because it's a logistics thing. We don't decide the logistics. That's
Yeah,
not
but I don't know what your answer was to Danny yet. Are you giving Danny the approval to get whatever police officers he needs in order so that this goes off very nicely?
It's not up to me.
Commissioner, I'm gonna do that regardless.
Thank you.
I mean, it's our number one priority is making sure the people are safe.
Right.
Thank you.
Protesters and the public. So
Well, I understand now, but it wasn't stated.
want him to do anything. It's not my job to direct him. He does not work for me. He doesn't work for any of us. So
Well, he did let you know what it encompasses, and you came back with take the money away from programs. So I just want to be sure that you're okay with Danny doing this. That's all.
I'm not arguing with you, Commissioner, and that's not what I said, and I'm not going to argue with you.
You
about
didn't say that about programs and money?
I said that I had concerns because we're already strapped on our budget. That's all. That's all. So please don't put words in my mouth. I'm not putting them in yours.
I have to read the minutes.
Subject here. Okay, can we move on to the next
Yes.
report? Thank you. Steve, if you're finished, be probably good.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Can.
Okay, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Commissioners, Manager, staff, and all our fine residents in Dania Beach. I want to let you know, the women and men for BSO Fire Rescue, we continue to keep ourselves nice and clean and wearing our PPE so that we can keep you safe. Done our best to procure as much free PPE, personal protection equipment for our city employees and staff. And our hurricane plan has been posted and distributed to the city. Also, all the new media is out and put up on our website. Do you have any questions for me?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, well, thank you. And that concludes my report. Now, I'll be sure that our units are ready for Thursday.
Thank you, Chief. Next item is consent agenda. Do we have any polls?
7.5. Make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 7.5.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed?
7.5, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Dania Beach, Florida, authorizing the expenditure of funds by the city manager's office for services to be purchased from News Directors, Inc. for professional crisis management, communication, and video production for fiscal year 2019-2020, ending September 30, 2020, that exceed an annual vendor total amount of $25,000. Providing for conflicts, further providing for an effective date, sponsored by the city manager.
Yes, thank you, Tom. I just had a question. I know we all have participated in the I Love Local videos. I see that we are allocating $10,000 from the social media budget for another round of them. I just had a question of how many more videos are they going to be? Is it going to be exactly like the first time? Is it going to be a shorter and abbreviated version of it or a longer version?
Thank you, Commissioner James. The I Love Local campaign has been a huge success. As you know, all of you have participated. I know that we still have round 2 of your second video, Commissioner James, and we have the mayor's video to go. This will take monies that exist in their budget and shift it towards the I Love Local. We can do approximately 6 more sessions. We could do as many as 3 each. So we'll be talking, we could do up to 18 more local businesses. For example, some of you did 2, but for example, the vice mayor did 3. And she was able to do 3 within the time allotted. So I think that we could do up to 18, but we could do a minimum of 12 or so.
So I guess I'm asking because.
But it's been going really well, and we have the money is in.
Oh, sorry. Yes, it has been going well. I was just asking because it wasn't the same amount as the first amount. So that's why I was asking, was it an abbreviated version or why is it less money than the first go round and of videos, and what the difference is with the monies that were allocated to what the work was the first time?
No, in essence, every time you get, Mr. Andrews and you get the camera, and then you get the whole editing, the whole package. Every time this has happened, it's been $1,500. So to do it 6 more times, we're doing it approximately 10,000. So 1,500, we do it 6 more times. That's where we're at in regards to this. But it
Why
all
are we doing
depends
it
on
6 more times and not 5?
Oh, one of the things that he had suggested to kind of do one in Spanish and English. And he had asked me, hey, why don't you do one? Maybe some in Spanish and some in English. But you don't have to approve that. That's up to you.
No, I was just asking why it was 6 instead of 5.
So it's 5 of you and then 1 more that he suggested I could do.
Okay. Thank you.
A suggestion. Thank you.
Mr. Harris?
Isn't it possible that we do one as a group, maybe?
It's absolutely, you could do one as a group. You can do one in tandem, in groups of 2 or 3. You can, it's up to you. And Brian really thinks outside the box. But a lot of the times, for example, Brian will tell me, one of you wants to do it this way, another one wants to do it. So it's basically, it's up to you. And that's why it's worked so well, because you guys have been your own directors, your own protagonists as well.
Can we?
Yeah, Commissioner James, sorry.
Yes, well, I like that idea from Commissioner Harris. Maybe we can use that last session and try and do something as a group.
Because,
love that.
there's a lot of food out there and we all like to eat. So let's do something like that.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay, or we could all go to Jackson's again or something like that, because I think the result, and I saw Commissioner James, I saw the vice mayors, I saw the mayors, and got great feedback from mine, and people are saying, when are you gonna come to us? So yeah, it's definitely something that's that people like.
And order the
And
kitchen.
Commissioner Brandon Martes was like an episode of the Golden Girls, so yeah, we really like that one as well.
And you could order the kitchen sink for all of us.
Yeah, no, it's
I
going
won't
to
be
be
sharing
wonderful. You guys can actually be stationed already, and then we can move from one to the other, or be really creative and really think outside the box. And I think that could definitely happen.
So yeah, motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next is bids and requests for proposals.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Dania Beach, Florida, ratifying invitation to bid ITB number 20-001, entitled Pool Heaters for PJ Mealy Aquatic Complex, authorizing the award of the bid to Leslie's Pool Mart Inc. for an amount not to exceed $43,485.90, providing for conflicts, further providing for an effective date, sponsored by Parks and Recreation.
Is there anything that we need to discuss on this? Oh, Commissioner Harris?
So based on the last order, I know that the public pools are still closed. Is this something that we need to get done while the pools are still closed, or is it going to delay the opening of the pools even more? Does anyone know?
Can I answer that question?
Okay.
The conversation today through the city manager to Park, they are available. They're ready to go for lap swimming only at the pools, the park pools. So we have an order that's ready to go to allow those to reopen for that purpose. It just has to be signed. So I don't. Does anybody have an opposition to that? I mean, our biggest issue with it was to make sure that there was proper staffing in the.
A little more about it, like only for laps.
There was a request to allow for lap swimming. There will be limited hours. I think it's 8 to 11, 4 to 8, something to that effect on weekdays. We just modified the emergency order to say that it'll be one person per lap per lane. And no more people can be on the pool deck and in the pool than allowed by the county's current emergency order, which is 50% of both the deck and the pool.
So that was based upon what Parks has told us they're able to do. I see Eric is on the call. If Eric wants to chime in, I don't know if he does or not.
Yeah, I have a question for him if he does.
Go ahead. Hi, Director.
Hello. Yes. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Manager, City Attorney, and staff. Eric Brown, Parks Director. Yes, we're going to follow the executive order that the mayor signed, as well as the standards guidelines for pools. There will be lap swimming during our hours of operation, which 8 to 11 and 5 to 8. And our lap swimming will be one lane per person, making sure that we keep the 6 foot separation of distance intact. So we won't allow lap swimming anywhere else but at PJ Milley, because PJ Milley really have the area for lap swimming.
Commissioner, oh, sorry. Yeah, Commissioner Harris, you have your hand up.
I know we had a problem in the past with grounding of the electrical. Are these pool heaters particularly, are they electric or are they natural gas?
Well, the pool heaters were needed because the ones that were intact were antiquated before so an RFP went out just before the pandemic, and this company was awarded the bid for the RFP, and we're just going now to get it done because, winter is coming, although we're dealing with summer right now. So the pool heaters was approved by you guys in the 2020 budget. And we're just now getting around to having them fixed because we'll need them again when the winter time comes. And the pool heaters and the inspection for the electrical was done today and tomorrow. And that's annually, because if you remember when the city manager arrived, we didn't have the electricals on our pools, and we had some issues with our electrical problems where it could have actually killed anybody that jumped in the water. So that's on schedule annually for all of our pools, for both of our pools, both of our sites, to have the electrical done on an annual basis. And we have our final tomorrow. So we're looking to do lap swimming at PJ Milley come this Thursday.
So what's the length of time it takes to do the repairs or the installation?
Well, the repairs for the installation for the pool heaters, is that what you're referring to?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the pool heaters have no domain over swim. That's just heating up the pool during the wintertime. If you guys remember, maybe a few of you guys remember getting calls about not being able to use PJ Milley because it was too cold.
Right.
So this has no issues. It's just putting the heater in so that you can warm a pool up come wintertime.
Okay. So it's not an operable.
No, it won't. It won't have any
It's
effect on the pool opening or closing. Just being able to swim in it when it's wintertime. In Florida, we really don't get a winter, but for those 2 weeks out of the year, we want to make sure that people can still swim.
Commissioner James?
Yes, thank you. Eric, is there going to be any usage of the pool at CW Thomas, or does everyone who want to use the pool have to go to PJ Milley? Like, is there a way that we can format the pool to where it could be utilized for swimming?
Yeah, we're putting together an amazing summer camp for the month of July, and we're going to utilize both pools during that time. CW Thomas, based on my time here and prior, people really didn't lap swim. So we're working on something where CW Thomas will be open for swim, but we're going to design it so that people can have open swim where it's not all where the restrictions can still keep them at a social distancing in the pool. So we're working on that, and we're going to go with PJ Milley right now, and by summertime we'll have both locations open for swim with social distancing in effect, of course.
So come Thursday, the only pool that could be utilized is PJ Milley, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
No, I just wanted you all to have the confidence that whereas in the past, we didn't have a maintenance or a game plan in regards to checking our pools for electrical and for plumbing, now we have something in place that before we open our pools, everything in regards to structural, electric, and plumbing is checked thoroughly in both pools. So we're ready to go.
And just one more thing, Commissioner James, so you know that when we will have a demand for CW Thomas pool, and we'll be prepared for that to happen at a later date, and I'll bring that to you guys once that takes place. But definitely during the summer camp, our summer camp participants will be allowed to use both sites, because swim lessons and CSC and all that has been shut down. They're not operating in pools right now, so we want to make sure that we are following proper protocol for one, and make sure that we are safe, because kids really don't understand the social distancing piece. So, we got to make sure that lifeguards are trained, which they've done a great job during this pandemic of being trained on how to handle the social distancing and making sure our protocol is in place.
So we are having summer camps, because we are having summer camps. Could you tell me the guidelines on the summer camps? Because I know it was up in the air. I didn't know that it was
summer camp.
James, I have that information in my manager's report for you guys. Because
okay, but I know people that are listening that might want to hear, because I didn't know.
No, absolutely. What happened was we didn't get the order from the county until late on Friday night. Right. So Eric and I have been planning to have the safest, even including City Hall and the rest of the sites, to be able to deliver something safe. But we have been waiting until the county gave us the green light. So we have been adjusting. But we're Eric, give him pretty much some highlights of what we're planning.
Yeah. So we actually went live today. We've been working with legal on making sure that we have some legal documents that parents would have to sign for social distancing, and as well as for, being responsible for COVID, or the city won't be held liable. And what we put together is going to be amazing for 4 weeks in July. PJ Milley, CW Thomas, Frost, and City Hall. And we're going to have 10 kids per site, only because the guidelines is 50%, and our camps are normally anywhere from 50 to 30. And with the counselors only hiring 8 counselors, we brought on 3 more so that counselors can get a lunch break. So each counselor will be responsible for 5 to 6 children per group. And we're gonna have in-house field trips. We'll social distance for if we need to transport to a pool with our vans. We're contacting some other folk right now as far as that's concerned, but we're looking to do anywhere from 10 to 12 kids per site, and the sites are PJ Milley, Frost, CW Thomas, and City Hall. And each week will be a specialty camp with a different theme. Staff has done a tremendous job of coming up with different ideas on what's going to take place during those 4 weeks of camp.
We would also have to follow what the county wants us to do the temperature checks and everything that needs to comply with a game plan coming from the county, in order for us to follow the criteria.
Yes, correct. And we have those tools in place. I want to thank the fire department, Chief Pellistar, for making sure that we have our temperature gauges, so everybody will be trained. And next week, we're going to start looking at bringing our part-time staff in just for training on social distancing, what type of events we're going to participate in that we can. And, you know, I'm even going to put my counselor hat back on and bring out a few games that they haven't seen before, that a man named Alvin Lightfoot taught me at Northeast Community Center. I'm going way back. So we're going to bring out some of those games because they can keep kids from being close to one another. We have a game plan in place, and we look forward to having a great month of camp in the month of July.
Thank you. I make a motion to approve 8.1.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, next is discussion and, public hearings.
Ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Dania Beach, Florida, authorizing the expenditure of city funds exceeding $1 million, which expenditure is not to exceed the project estimate approved by the City Commission to fund the Southeast Second Avenue Water Main Pipe Project, replacement project, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, further providing for an effective date, second and final reading, sponsored by Public Services.
This is the public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak for or against?
I make a motion to approve.
Public hearing.
I did. I called for public hearing. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Brandimart,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Odman,
Yes.
Mayor Llewellyn.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is discussion and possible action. First item is city manager's one-year review. I trust that everybody has completed their forms and is prepared tonight. Yes. Is there anybody who's not? Okay. I asked Linda Gonzalez if you could join us. Yeah, some feedback on your. That's gonna be a problem. All right, again.
Yes, this is Linda.
Okay, there we go. Much better.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Hello? Linda, are you there?
I think she's muted.
Hello?
Oh, she's not muted.
Oh, there we go.
Hello, this is Linda.
Linda, can you hear us?
Good evening, Mayor and Commission, Vice Mayor, Manager.
Okay. Can you just give us some advice here? Should we just go through each? I think we talked about last time we were going to have each person basically talk about their pros, cons, room for improvement, that sort of thing.
Yes, from the memo that we sent out, basically summarize what we thought would be a good plan for tonight. And really, if you go over to number 8, the suggestion was that the mayor would solicit commissioner scores and a brief summary. Should the commissioners choose to provide the summary, and then we have the city clerk calculating and announcing the average of those scores submitted by adding the individual ratings together and dividing by the number of commissioners who submit ratings. So that's the suggestion.
Okay. So do we have that information? Or are we just going to go through each individual and just give their feedback? And
Yes.
just look at guidance, because we haven't done this before.
Yes, I think it would be a good idea, Mayor, if you want to lead the discussion and just go through each individual commissioner and ask if they wanted to give a summary or have a discussion.
All right, so we'll go through our usual list. And I'll start with Commissioner Brandon Marty. If you just give us basically a summary of your thoughts on this. And
I am submitting it and not discussing it,
okay,
not any of it.
okay. Commissioner Harris, would you like to go?
I have completed both forms and I wrote a 2-page narrative on what I thought the excellent job that the city manager has done since she's been here. So I will be happy to submit that for anyone to see.
Do you want to give any other feedback?
I'm sorry?
Do you want to give any other feedback, or is that the conclusion of your feedback?
The individual characteristics and the professional skills all scored very high according to my estimation. So I'll be happy to share that with anyone at a later date for a more detailed explanation.
Okay, Commissioner James?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like anyone is going into detail, so I don't know if I'm following suit or what's going on here. I think overall the city manager scores decently and high when it comes to response, when it comes to responding to what a resident wants and to what even what we want, trying to be responsive in emails and getting staff to be on top of things. I don't think she scored very high on, certain policy procedures and interpersonal relationships with some of us. I don't think that, I think it's difficult to give the city manager constructive criticism. What I will say my concerns are about the leadership here is the turnover rate that we have had with staff at high levels, both that have been recruited from the city manager and those long-time standing employees that were here before the city manager. I really look at what she came into with the OIG and the report and everything of that nature. And I know that we were supposed to have a new RFP for the engineering services. I don't think that has been completed and it's been a year. I also know, I don't even know if we ever hired the person for the procurement position. I've never met a person, or I don't know of anyone that was hired in that retrospect. So that whole process, I think was very, very big to this commission with the OIG, and I don't think the process has been redone. But other than that, I think that she is high energy, type of individual that is very responsible when it comes down to, following. Sometimes I feel like she's my boss instead of vice versa. And I don't know if it's a personality clash or it's just, we're trying to get through a tough stage or whatever it is. But I really have a real concern about the culture here and how employees used to speak to me. They won't even speak to me anymore. I know that when city manager was first hired, she said that we were able to have different relationships and conversations without her being privy to it, as long as it's not us directing it. And that hasn't really been the case. I think that there's been a lot of challenges with COVID and that, staff has stepped up and done a great job, and that's their job. But I don't know if I'm going through every single thing. I don't wish to go through every single thing. No one else is supposed to do that. So, thanks.
Okay, Vice Mayor?
Thank you. I've completed the evaluation and I'll be submitting it for the public record tomorrow. Just briefly overall, I have developed a great working relationship with the city manager. I find her pleasant to work with. I find her energy infectious in the most wonderful way. And I think she has done a great deal to move the city of Dania Beach forward in a positive way. When you have the kind of personality that Manager Garcia has, you have also other strong personalities on here. I'm not speaking about anyone in particular. I'm actually mostly speaking about myself. Sometimes that it becomes a lot. The room can become intense. But I look at that as being a good thing because I think that provides the opportunity for challenging each other, for challenging the city manager, for the city manager challenging us. And I imagine this also bubbles over into the staff. Sometimes can it feel perhaps imposing, maybe, but I think like anything in life, things that feel difficult or hard or challenging usually end up being good and bring forth good development. So I'm very happy with her work here. I'm happy with what she has done, and the other details of that I would love to discuss with her in private. But like I said, the form will be submitted for public record. Linda, did you want us to give a number for the city manager as well?
Well, if you want to do a score, then we would have to have a number in order to come up with an average score. That's up to however the the mayor and commission want to proceed with that. Or it can be done, as we said, it can be done individually. That's really up to how everyone wants to handle that. But in order to come up with a collective average score, if that is the commission, then we would need that information, and if not, then we wouldn't.
All right, well, let's not be difficult about this. So are the rest of you comfortable giving her a score from on here? We're just going to go off of the ICMA performance evaluation from 1 to 5. Do the rest of you feel like you could publicly give her a 1 through 5 now? I mean, let's see, Bill saying yes. Commissioner Brandemarty, would that be something you would be willing to do?
I am only submitting, that is all.
Okay, so since Commissioner Brandemarty won't be submitting a number, it won't be possible for us to give an accurate average publicly tonight. So I guess we'll just have to go off of discussion. That's all I have. Thank you.
I don't know.
Okay. I also gave a fairly high rating in most categories. I think that Erin has done a fantastic job since she's been here. I think she's brought a new energy to the city that we've been lacking, especially given the fact that we've been moving forward. I think that that there has been a turnover, but that's typical when you have new management that comes into a city, because sometimes changes are needed. I'm not uncomfortable with the changes that she's made. I think they've been changes for the better. And I think that we have been able to see some successes as a result of some of those changes. My only criticisms of that, and I had discussed this with her because I did that in advance of tonight. I wanted to make sure that she knew what my thoughts were and what my criticisms were, are that she sometimes could be more succinct in her responses to things, and kind of just give us the bullet points. And sometimes that's just the nature of her personality. And it's not a bad thing. It's just a matter of being a little more succinct and getting to the point a little quicker sometimes. But other than that, I think that overall she does a fantastic job, and I can give you some very specific examples. We heard some tonight. The fact that we've actually got inspections that are in place now for not only for our city properties, for our pools, things like that that haven't been looked at apparently in quite some time, and that's something that's important. I know that early on in Anna's term here, she has met with residents or very early on, and I can give you one example that I know there was a concern from a resident that came to the dais and complained about lighting in a particular neighborhood, and she went personally and spent an hour and a half driving around the community with that resident, taking pictures and identifying where the problems were and what needed to be fixed. That's not something that I've ever seen anybody do in this type of a position. I think that's tremendous because it goes a long way to at least go out and see what the problem is, spend the time with the resident, find out what the issues are, and then go back and address the problems. And they were addressed quickly, as a matter of fact. I think she also has done a great job because she has a relationship with other cities, other electeds, other city managers, and has gotten very involved in dealing with things in Tallahassee, in Washington. She has reached out to different offices. Even recently, we actually had a conversation about reaching out to certain senators' offices with regard to some of the events that have been taking place here and some of the things that we need to change. I also think that part of the job of the city manager, and the same with the city attorney, but with the city manager in particular, is to kind of be a check for us. We all have ideas. We all have things that we want to do, but we can't always do everything that we want to do. And given her level of experience with other cities, I think that she has done an excellent job of letting us know, at least with me, when there's something that I want that it can't be done, and explaining why, and giving good justification as to why. And that's important. I personally, I think this is similar to what the vice mayor said. I always liked in school having the harder teachers because they challenge you and they tell you what you don't always want to hear, and they make you work harder. And I think that she has done that successfully, and I think it has made each of us better in the long run. And I appreciate her being here. I did not give her all 5 by any means. I have my number is not a 5 across the board. There are things that I do think that she could improve on. Like I said, communication skills I think are 1, but again, I think part of that's part of her personality. I also do think that she takes things personally sometimes, but I know that's also the sign of somebody who's a perfectionist. So it is something that we have talked about and we have discussed. But overall, I think that she's doing a fantastic job, and I know that from seeing people respond to her, as far as not just residents but the people who work for her, I think it says a lot about the job that she's doing here. So, and I'm hoping that she's with us a lot longer. I also know that she has basically said that she's not even looking for a raise. And I know that we obviously need to wait until we see what happens with the budget before we can even consider anything like that. I'm not going to suggest that she be given a raise, but what I would suggest is that we give her an extra week of vacation, because she has been working 24/7. I don't know about everybody else, but I know I have called her weekends, evenings, early mornings, and I always get an answer. And I would make a suggestion that we agree at this time that we give her an extra week of vacation. So I don't know what anybody else thinks about that. I see some hands raised. Commissioner Harris.
I would definitely support an extra week of vacation because, like what you just said, if I call Anna at 7 o'clock on a Sunday evening, I know she's going to get back to me in just a couple of minutes. So, or even if it's midnight or 6:30 in the morning. So, especially through this very difficult time of the last 111 days with the COVID. She's always available. She's always forthright with all the information as soon as we get it, through the mayor's office, through the city attorney's office, through Eve's office, through everybody's office. So the communication is excellent. So it's been a 24/7 job. And you say an extra week of vacation. So I will say that every time that there's a 3-day weekend, whether it's Labor Day, Memorial Day, or one of those 3-day weekends, that we tack on an extra day on that, or an extra week of vacation. But I know that what your suggestion is well taken with me, and I would definitely support extra vacation time because I think everybody needs it right now. Thank you.
Commissioner James.
Yes, I would like to ask Frank, how much does that cost the city, the extra week vacation? Because even though that's not a raise, that's still a financial impact to our budget. So I want to know that number. And on top of that, while he's getting that number, we talk about taking two more days away from the commission for a month for our commission meetings. And we're talking about giving that in return in an entire week. I know that the city manager either has 4 or 5 weeks currently in 1 year for vacation. And I'm not comfortable with that, especially not knowing what we are doing right now, COVID and everything else. I'm definitely not comfortable with that because a dollar amount comes for each added benefit. And it might not be tacked on the salary, but it's definitely tacked on to our budget. Frank?
Frank, can you give us a number right now, or is that
I'm-
something?
I can have that number for you in a moment.
Okay.
In the meantime, if I could just add to that, I can tell you that there have been times that Anna has been on vacation and has responded to my request while she's been on vacation. So it's not even like she's taking the full vacation to still work. But
I think all of us do that.
Well, she doesn't have to, honestly.
Neither do we. I'm just saying we all do that. That's all of our jobs. And anybody who's been on vacation, I've spoken to public services directors while I was in Cancun, dealing with the issue as well as Bob Baldwin. So I think that's all of our duties, regardless of what we are, to do the duties that we were hired or, appointed to do.
City Manager, you have your hand raised?
Yes, I wanted to say, first, thank you all for your feedback. But if Commissioner James' concern is that 1 week extra vacation in lieu of any type of salary adjustment, that we make sure that I can never cash in an additional week of vacation.
I can't hear her.
Yeah, you keep breaking up, Anna.
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay, right. What I wanted to do was, in lieu of any type of salary adjustment because of the situation, I wanted to address Commissioner James' concern that that additional week of vacation, if you were to add to that policy that I could never cash in that additional week vacation a year, then that would not be.
It wouldn't be a cost.
It wouldn't be fun.
Then a monetary issue.
But once you go on vacation, that does become a monetary issue because you have to pay someone else to fulfill the shoes. I know it's a percentage there, and it's a week of work that you won't be here. So it is. I'm not talking about severance pay necessarily, or being able to collect sick and personal days and all of that at the end. But while you're not here, in the capacity of city manager and you're on vacation, there is a financial cost that is directly related to it. I thought I did the numbers, but I'm not sure. It's somewhere around maybe $3,000-$4,000 of that. So I don't know.
That's only if I were to cash it in, Commissioner.
I understand. I understand that.
When I go on vacation, I would leave the assistant city manager as acting.
I know.
That doesn't cost the city anything.
He's capable.
He is.
That's why I hired the people.
And I'm not saying he's not capable. I'm saying that I'm uncomfortable after 12 months giving an extra week of vacation time when the city manager also already gets 4 or 5 weeks. I'm not sure of which week. How many weeks do you currently get?
City Manager, how many weeks do you currently get?
I believe it's somewhere between 4 and 5 weeks.
It's
Which one is it for?
It's 20 days.
20 days.
Yeah, so that's, yeah.
Four
So that's, yeah, I'm not comfortable with giving anyone a month off of work, maybe more than a month. It's 5 weeks at this point. So
Commissioner
that's
Harris?
my opinion.
As far as executive compensation goes, I don't think, 5 days, we're talking about a 5-day week, not a 7-day week. 5 days over this period of time is not that much. I mean, I don't expect anybody, you, me, or anybody else to take any time off during the midst of a pandemic or a public health crisis. But, a day off, extra day off here or there, I think is needed for anybody. I mean, no matter what you do, whether you're, working out in the field or executive compensation, I think it's much needed. And I would definitely support the extra vacation time in lieu of a salary increase. I mean, it's executive compensation for a job well done in my book.
How about with,
Frank,
do we have a consensus on that?
Wait, she still gets her 3% too, right?
Everybody gets
the entire.
Yeah, I mean, everybody gets that. That's just.
That's the entire organization.
Right.
You would get that in October.
We all get it.
Well, she's entitled to it. It was in her contract, and so does everybody else get that.
That's
I
correct.
don't, yes, yes.
So now what you're saying is a week extra on top.
Correct.
Well, right, in lieu of you all not being able to adjust my salary, as you have adjusted other folks' salary in the past, I report to you because of the current situation.
Oh, wait. We
See, let's not do that. Let's not do that because the salary, I need to address this, please. The salary adjustment that was made to the CRA executive director is the same type of adjustment that was made to members of the finance department that was in excess of $9,000. There was never an evaluation. It wasn't a performance raise that we gave the CRA executive director. It was from Evergreen. It was a salary adjustment that many positions got, and it ranged from $100 to $10,000. So this wasn't we're going to go look into your contract and give you a raise because of the great job that you had done, because they tore the CRA executive director to shreds in the public setting. So let's just talk about one thing without putting someone else in it. That salary adjustment had nothing to do with a performance raise. We're talking about giving scores and giving a performance raise. That's all. And if you're going to take 3%, that is a raise, the same thing that everyone else is getting. And matter of fact, you will be receiving it on October 1, despite our union employees who negotiated the contract, and they didn't even get retroactive pay, so they won't even be receiving it. They didn't even receive it on October 1. So if we're going to talk about your salary, let's just talk about your salary, and not just try to shade anyone else or throw them into the mix.
Commissioner, I was just giving some examples. I negotiated
examples
union.
out of finance. Did you know about those?
But wait, stop. Can we just stop a minute? First of all, I think that's a misstatement. I'm not going to go back and rehash this again because it's done. But that the other employee that you're talking about is a contracted employee, just like the city manager. So it is comparable. It is not the same as Evergreen. It was not based on Evergreen. It was not based on Evergreen because she came to us with a proposal and it was granted in full the way that she asked for it as a resolution. It was not a matter of a negotiation. So we're not going to rehash that. We're not going to go back over that now. What's done is done. But bottom line is that it's a week's vacation for an executive level position. An executive level position in both the private and public sector. A 5-week vacation is not unheard of. That is perfectly reasonable. This is
1 year.
He does not even get an expense account, and she's been working 24/7 for weeks now, months at this point. And I don't think that that's a lot to ask for. Commissioner Harris, you have your hand up.
I don't, 5 days is not a lot to ask for based on the fact that she's got a very favorable evaluation. Commissioner James wanted to bring up the increase for the CRA director, but that was done without any kind of evaluation. It was just like, let's give her a raise and make an adjustment. So I would say that based on the fact that the evaluation is very favorable, she should be awarded the extra days. And, let's move on. We've heard from everybody but the vice mayor.
Well,
my hand is up.
Commissioner James' hand was up first, so we will go back to her, but the vice mayor also needs to speak if she has yet to speak on. Go ahead, Commissioner James.
Thank you. As I said, we have managers all across the country that have been, if not in similar situations, in worse situations with COVID in their cities. And I doubt any of them have slept. And on top of that, they're taking furlough days right now in other cities. They're taking furlough days. And we're not talking about giving extra vacations or even an extra percentage or whatever, but they're taking furlough days. That's what they're doing. We are discussing, while we have 38 million people unemployed, we're discussing giving an extra week of vacation when we just tried to take 2 days from the commission back to have extra meetings of I don't even know what, because I haven't been called into an extra meeting for that. So I don't know what the need of that is. But even if we're going to discuss
us being present, we're discussing us being more present, and we're discussing the manager taking days off. Everyone's been teleworking. No one has been at City Hall all day, every day. And like I said, during this pandemic, when we have 38 million unemployed people and other managers are discussing furlough days, we are discussing giving extra days off. And that's my opinion.
Vice Mayor?
I'm really disappointed that we're talking about Director Williams. I don't see where she fits into this conversation, or how her raise fits into this conversation. And frankly, I'm sick of hearing her raise used over and over and over and over again as a talking point. Inappropriate. It's not right. So let's just move on from that, because that's not the right thing to do, and we're all better than that. Let's keep our eye on what we're talking about. The performance of City Manager Ana Garcia. We're not talking about unemployed America. We're not talking about the extra meetings that I ask people to attend. We're not talking about any of these other things. We're specifically talking about what value if any, are we going to tie to the city manager's performance. So I'd really like to stick to that. Frank, do you have a number for what the value of the 1 week vacation is?
Well, I will say that if the manager is never entitled to get paid out on that time, and if she doesn't decide to appoint anyone to be an acting manager in her absence, then there is no direct cost to the city for her getting an extra week of vacation. If you want to know the value of a week of the city manager's worth based on her work, based on her salary, that's 40 hours of her schedule, that's $3,961.
Okay, so thank you very much. So she said that she's agreeing to not having that tied to a payout, and we all know, and I think are obviously comfortable with Candido Sosa Cruz stepping in during her time. So it's a zero value, quality bonus that we'd be giving her of time. We'd be giving her time, more time. So, I mean, if there's no more, I think I see Bill's hand is up, but after that, I think we should just see if there's consensus for her to have that. And if not, we can move the discussion on from there. I'm sorry, and it would be for 5, are we saying 5, calling it 5 days of vacation?
5 days.
Okay, so after Bill speaks, I would like to see if there's consensus for 5 days of vacation. I would like it specifically tied to those 2 points that it can't go into payouts. Or to that 1 point that it can't go into payouts. But for those 5 days for the city manager.
Commissioner Harris?
Laura,
If you're looking for consensus, I say yes. Let's do it.
I would say yes as well.
So it's up to you, Vice Mayor. It looks like whatever you want.
Whose turn is it?
I think you need a vote ultimately here.
Yeah, I do too.
Oh, it's not consensus, it's vote.
The vote.
So we need to have a motion?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve 5 extra vacation days for the city manager.
With
those 2 caveats, yes, Vice Mayor, with those 2 caveats.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So does that mean you're seconding it or no?
I'll second that.
Please take the roll.
Commissioner Brandimart,
No.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner James,
No.
Vice Mayor Odman,
Yes.
Mayor Llewellyn.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-2.
Not to bring up another topic, but there is something else that I would like to add on to this, but I wanted to do it separately. I think that especially given everything that's been going on and projects that are in the works and are continuing, I'd also like to see if there is an interest in extending the manager's contract at this time, and see if we could extend it, I would say, for one extra year, just for consistency purposes. City Attorney?
it's a 2-year contract right now, right, Anna?
Yeah, it's a little under 2 years.
Okay, because you can't exceed 3 is the point.
That is correct. It's to get back to 3.
You could give 1 extra year at this point if you chose, yes.
Right, because we're 15 months into.
And that's what I'm asking, if we could do the additional year to make it the even 3 years.
I raise my hand.
Commissioner Brandon Marty?
Yes, I think that with elections down the road and not that far away, that should be left up to the next seated commission, not us. And we've done this in the past all the time, as you know, Commissioner Harris, you know we've done it this way. The next commission will have to live by the rule that we make. I think that we should wait until then.
Commissioner Harris?
I disagree. I think we need some kind of consistency at least for another year. So I would add the 1-year extension to the existing contract.
Is that a motion?
That'd be a motion to approve, yes, 1-year extension.
Is there a second?
I'm sorry. I had to go back to the contract here.
Mhm.
Hear me? The
Yeah.
agreement has a term of 3 years already, starting in 2019, so you cannot extend it.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Glad I caught it on time.
I will say that I think it's something that actually should be considered.
It's a 3-year contract right now.
I understand that, but I'm just saying, I think it's something that should be considered for whoever ends up on the, I mean, there's 2 of us that are going to be on the dais in the future, but whoever else ends up there, because we do need some consistency. And we've had, this is the first time that I think we've had a city manager who has been so proactive and has made efforts to move forward. I know there are people that have personal issues, apparently, but I think that if we look at it objectively, you can see that this is somebody that's actually been well worth her weight of gold to the city. That's my opinion.
Her term ends March 12th, 2022.
Okay.
Can you carry this over for the next commission's consideration?
The charter says you cannot add to an existing contract, which is at the maximum of 3 years. So the other one has to expire before anything happens.
Oh, all right.
You can do something before it expires, but you can't amend the contract until it's over, and you can talk about the future. It's 3 years under the charter right now. That's the maximum.
Oh, okay. So if I may through the chair, so Tom, this was something that could be brought up like in 2021 or a year.
Well, you'd bring it up in spring of 2022 to say it's ending in March of this year, and I'd like whatever. And
Oh, okay.
Okay.
At that time.
Fair. Okay.
Thank you.
I don't have anything else.
And I just want to thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, City Center project, Commissioner James.
Yes, thank you. I've had a few discussions about this after I read the memo that was, and my discussion and my motion and my whatever I want to take away from this is that I want to table this for at least 6 months. I do not want to just cancel this. I have spoken to a couple of the developers since it was over, and recommended that it no longer go through or move forward, that we should just table this for 6 months to see where we are in our economy so we don't have to start the process all the way over. And I did speak with developers who ensured that if changes needed to be made, because we don't know what it would look like, what it's going to look like in 6 months, they are willing and ready to do that. I know that we've spent a substantial amount of money through the charrettes and the workshops and everything else. And I don't know how much money we've already spent in negotiating. But I do, that's my motion and my discussion is that we take a look at this in 6 months before we just decide to just cancel everything today.
City manager.
So that's my discussion.
No, certainly. And this is something, Commissioner, that we had discussed, but I want you to know, and I want all your colleagues to know. Can you hear me? So, we have $2.6 million, 1.8 for City Hall, to harden City Hall with brand new roof, brand new windows. This is something that we work very hard to get. And also another 800,000, so a total of $2.6 million to harden City Hall and the fire station. But we need to spend that money by August of next year. And that was something that we took under consideration. And we have Jamie Cole, who's our chairman of the board. And that's one of the reasons. If we didn't have this money, we could put it on hold and see what would happen. But my concern is that we would, in essence, lose.
Let me ask you a question. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Your phone, it's lagging or breaking up. Let me ask you a question. How much does it cost to renovate City Hall? Because I know that's been a discussion, and I know from past, before you even gotten here, we went down that road, and they said it would cost anywhere between $14 million. So if I'm looking at this in a renovation that would cost $14 million and only 2.6 is going to be given to us through a grant, we still have about $11 million or 11 point something million dollars to be able to cover the rest of the cost. So are we talking about just hardening the roof or the walls, or we're talking about a renovation of City Hall, state of the art, inside and outside, that's going to be representative of where we're going as a city?
City manager's frozen.
Anna?
She's frozen. Hold on.
Oh.
I can't hear nobody.
No, she's frozen. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Monica?
I've asked Monica to go assist her.
At any rate, as a discussion item, I wanted to discuss it amongst my peers to see if that was an issue. I understand that the monies have to be spent by August, but if those monies have to be spent, it's a bigger budget issue that we're going to be discussing, which is how much it really costs to completely renovate City Hall. And so that's something that we have to take a look at.
Commissioner Harris has his hand raised, so why don't we do that while we're waiting for Anna?
Sure.
Well, after reading that, what I think is the post-COVID workplace is going to look entirely different. All those people that are teleworking from home now will not need an office space in City Hall, so we can probably get by with the existing City Hall space, do the hardening, and when we know more about what the future holds, we can put out a more succinct RFQ for the needs of the city in the future, rather than the $64 million project that they put forward, which was under huge public scrutiny.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're doing the right thing by delaying the project because, we just don't know. We just don't know what the future is going to bring post-COVID in the workplace in any kind of City Hall.
Right, and I want to delay it as well. That's what I'm saying. I want to delay it, not deny it, because I spoke to two of the developers, and they are willing to delay it and conform it to whatever it's going to look like. I don't know if all of our employees are going to come back, or if they're going to telework, or or what have you. I don't know the future of any of that, but I am willing to delay it and see what the possibilities are, not necessarily deny it.
Okay, Anna, are you?
Yeah, thank you so much for your patience. And thank God I'm here. I would have freaked out if I would have been at home. And thank you, Monica. So much has changed with COVID. When we first started to have this conversation, we were thinking, well, we have to be in a much bigger City Hall, and we need to have more offices, and we need to have more space. And then COVID came. And then we started to telework, and we started to see that we need less rather than more. And we started to look at things totally different. And these particular developers needed City Hall to totally be demolished. City Hall could not stay here. The library could not stay there. The fire station could not stay here. So as we begin to not just look at how we're working today and in the future that we need less space, and also seeing those monies that the 2.6 million that exists from the grant, that was my concern in regards to let's wait more time and see, because we could also issue another RFP, and we've developed a relationship with these folks, so we would more than welcome them to be part of a new RFP. But so much has changed, Commissioner, during COVID, that if we were to really look at the 2,500 square feet that we have in the West Wing, that now is clean, that we've done all the mold remediation, and in addition to this $2.6 million, we could really save a lot of money and maybe address just the other side of the campus or other areas in a new RFP in the future.
Commissioner Brandon.
I agree. Believe it or not, I do agree. I agree in postponing it, but going off of Bill, our residents were furious about that. I am more for, and it's well known, for doing it the way that Anna is saying. I'd rather see the money get invested into our city hall. Our residents don't really even give a darn and came here and spoke against the city center because they don't want all those apartments built close to the railroad tracks. They're saying that who would want to even live there? And if you only rent 3 floors of it, if you recall, Commissioner Harris, what happens with the rest of the floors over there? So I say go baby steps, just like it's being proposed by the city manager, and even on what takeoff on Bill, as far as I'm concerned. And you're lucky I wouldn't be on the commission then, because I would have voted no on city center anyway, because I agree with the residents. It's too many homes on that track, and who wants to live there?
And I see city attorney's raising their hand, but I just want to say one thing. I also have a concern because it's, again, that goes back to COVID and how people are living now and really want that many apartments all together.
Right.
Location.
You're right.
Okay, wait, I've got several hands up. Let me let city attorney speak first, and then I'll come to everybody.
All right, very briefly, and I'll have Jamie add on if anything. But when we let this RFP and it was issued, it was for a project that was articulated. Now we're at a point where we have no idea in
Right.
6 months or not, but it will not be what was articulated and what was submitted. It couldn't possibly be what was offered to us. So the developer and the team worked very hard, and it evolved over a period of time, but it was still a city center project. Now I'm concerned that legally, if we continue to hold it, we're not holding it to what the intent was in the beginning, which was for a citywide project down here. I don't see that happening. You can hold it and wait for 6 months, but it's different. It will clearly, in my estimation, and I'm not a planner, but it'll be clearly different. Jamie, I don't know if you have an add-on to me.
No, other than I do agree with your city attorney. The project has changed so substantially, and 6 months from now would be even different. So it would be prudent to go ahead and do a new RFP at that point after you see the effects of COVID and the effects of the economic situation, and specifically exactly what you want and what you need. But it does look like what you would be doing at that point is so substantially different. You would need a new RFP process. And of course, the current developers with whom we've been negotiating would be free to participate in that. But you would be open to objections by other potential bidders if you didn't open it up at that point, given the substantial changes to the project by then.
So where would we stand with what the way that the manager was suggesting we do with what we got? Where are we going with that?
You might find it prudent, as I think she's recommending, to accept the federal grants for the hardening. The hardening, by the way, is to make it safe from storms. It doesn't renovate the building. Colin, I think, is on the call. He could tell you more details of the grant, but it's to make the windows, everything is storm-proof. The ceiling nearly came off at the last.
I remember that, Tom, and the flood too. There was a flood upstairs.
It's for those kinds of things. That's 1.8. It's not to renovate the whole building. Secondly, the other 800 for the fire station is to do similar work for existing buildings. So that's her recommendation is being prudent, or it's gone. It comes to a point where it'll be gone.
Yeah, I don't want it to be gone.
So that's for your consideration.
Commissioner Harris.
I think if you remember the night that we looked at the RFQ, there was some language in the contract that called for this company to demolish the Chamber of Commerce House and the Women's Club that we pointed out.
Yeah.
And based on the fact that the commercial and the city workplace is going to look totally different post-COVID, we don't know. I think to take the $2.6 million now and then look at a post-COVID workplace later, because the whole technology and the apparatus of any kind of city hall is going to change. Because I know right now from the MPO that they were going to build park and ride lots at Weston, Pembroke Pines, and Miramar for commuters that will be going to Miami to go on to work. And you know what? Commuters aren't going to be going to work anymore because they're going to be telecommuting. So that saved the cost of about $16 million right there, because they're not going to build the park and ride lots because people aren't commuting anymore. So we're not going to need all the space in City Hall because we're not going to have all the offices filled. So it's just, there are too many unknowns with the economic conditions, the population, the amount of workspace that we need. So I would say take the $2.6 million and let's, make this place a little bit better and just take what we can right now, rather than, I think I said before, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. And that was quite a while ago and we got a laugh out of that. But I would say, let's not do this right now. Let's do it later. Let's terminate the agreement and put it back out again when we know better what's going on in the future. Because we don't know. No one knows. No one knows.
Commissioner James?
Thank you. I just want to clear up, they wouldn't have been demolished, Commissioner Harris, they would have been relocated. So that's not part of it.
Demolished.
That's not
in the
part of it.
contract. It said demolished. I read it.
The Women's Club and the Chamber of Commerce were speaking about being relocated. We're not talking about being demolished.
Right.
I'm not talking about City Hall, I'm talking about the other two sites.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with accepting any grant funding. The question that I asked that still has not been answered
No, it hasn't.
still stands. I want to know, after the hardening, how much money are we going to have to put into remodeling or renovating City Hall?
Okay, so I'm going to give you my best guesstimate, right? So
I won't hold you to it.
Well, that's why I'm going to be very careful, because you've taught me a lot, and I appreciate that. So to build a new city hall, what we were looking at was approximately $10 million. And Frank and Jamie can chime in, or Tom that are here. It would be approximately $10 million. If we get the 1.8 million that we have, that bird in the hand, and we're able to put a brand new roof, brand new impact resistant windows and doors, there's still an opportunity to maybe set aside some money, nowhere close to $10 million, to refurbish the West Wing that will allow us to gain the 2,500 square feet. And that's something that we would need an assessment. We can have the mayor and commission office over there, or maybe HR over there. So I don't know, 100,000, 200, 250 maybe.
But we didn't even discuss what we wanted to do with the West Wing. That was put on hold. So I'm not even talking about that and discussing that. I was just asking how much. And I know a City Hall, and I know I've been in a few of those conversations, that $10 million is very low for the type of City Hall that we wanted to have. Unless I know what kind of deal y'all was negotiating, but $10 million does not seem like a very true number for the level of City Hall that we wanted to have. All I was asking is how much would it cost to renovate? It doesn't seem like we're going to get an answer. I am perfectly fine.
Because you know what, Commissioner, I can get you a number if we do an assessment, but I would rather wait to the budget workshop to see if you want to renovate the West Wing at all. My main concern is that $2.6 million that we have now to be able to harden this City Hall and get that new roof, get the new windows, get the new door, to do the same thing for the fire station. And then see what happens in 5, 6, 7 months in regards to the economy, and put out another RFP. That would be my recommendation based on my conversation with the finance director and our attorneys team.
That and that's fine. I just think that's how it should go all the time. Like, we should be able to discuss this first and then hear the recommendation, instead of seeing that there's a memo already put out that the deal is already killed. Basically, we're having an afterthought as a discussion to what already has transpired. I know there has had to have been phone calls and meetings and conversations with the developer, and that we're not just here talking and the developer doesn't understand what is going on. So before anything is decided, whether or not you're going to move forward or not, I think that's a decision that the commission makes, and we discuss it. And we're just now discussing it right now, in which I have no problem putting it on hold or following your recommendation. I want to make sure that we're following the proper protocol and procedures, which is we're supposed to make that decision. We're supposed to discuss that. And then we're supposed to make the recommendation. Then you can go back and speak to the developer. But I think a lot of times we're moving in a backwards direction of, we're kind of told what's happening and what's going to happen, and then we can give our commentary behind it.
Can we call at this point? I think we've had plenty of discussion on this, and it's getting late.
Yeah.
There's nothing to poll. I just wanted to discuss it. I didn't have anything to motion for.
It sounded like there were some motions being floated about earlier.
I said I wanted to see if there was consensus. There obviously is not consensus.
No.
And so I'm not going to go and make a motion for it.
Not consensus to just delay it.
There's not consensus to just delay it. There is consensus to kill the project. I mean, well, whatever the city manager already recommended, that's what the consensus is. There wasn't consensus to change that.
Because my concern is that if we don't, I don't know, and maybe, I don't know if the city attorney can answer this or Jamie Cole can answer this. I want to know if do we need to make a decision tonight? Is there an issue with time on this with regard to the 2.6 million? Yes, go ahead, city attorney.
I can tell you that we had a conversation with the two developers, represent the two people that were local, and then there's a developer, of course, that is the money person from a huge corporation. But the people here locally, the Capital Group, were very affable in dealing with us. They knew the way the world has changed, and that they know, as we did, we do not know what to expect, but we do know there are marked changes coming in the way people will live and will work. And we may not even know that in 6 months. We were amenable, and they concluded with us. We had a very good relationship with them for a number of months in negotiating. They know us, we know them. They would be invited back to any RFP, interested in doing that with their partner. And of course, they'd have a sort of a leg up in a way because they know the personalities and who we are and what we're seeking. So they're willing to come back with us. It was a very reasonable discussion with them. We're asking for you just to conclude by saying, yes, terminate the transaction. That's the recommendation. They are okay with that. And that we go back out when we can, which I hope is in 6 months, maybe longer, when we know if we will accept living arrangements downtown, retail, and of course, government. We'll know a lot more in 6 months to a year.
Doesn't the developers already know that though? That the project is not moving forward?
They were with us on the discussion. They understand how it's so different. They don't know what to anticipate.
Right.
But they know right before March 10th, when this broke, basically, they know everything fell in the well for everybody. You know that, and they agree with that.
Okay. So I think I'm not 100% sure I got an answer to my question on that. I understand what you're saying. I understand that you're saying that we're basically should not go forward on this is what the recommendation is. And that we should issue a new RFQ in 6 months or whatever time frame we need to do that. What I'm trying to find out is, do we have a time? Do we have to say for certain tonight that we're killing the deal, basically, so that we can go ahead and move forward with the $2.6 million? Is there a time frame on that that's required?
There's a time frame for accepting the money from FEMA for those 2 grants.
Which is what?
But for tonight, I think it's in early March of next year, maybe sooner. I forget the date. But for our purposes, the deal has been terminated by the party. The other side recognizes. And I'm asking for a consensus for you to agree with our recommendation with the developer that this is over and terminated.
Yes.
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 Okay, that's all we need. But we will stay in touch with them. It was a good group, and we'll probably see them back on another RFP response.
Isn't there a second part to this now?
No, there's nothing to do.
What about what the city manager was talking about?
That we move forward, Tom. I think that was Commissioner Brandon Martin saying for us to move forward to do the things that we need to do to the buildings. With the
how to make them safe.
That's for the grant money. I think maybe Anna, you'll want to come back and explain to them very clearly, for that money, here's what they do.
What we're going to be doing at the June meeting, I'm going to have Colin and the finance director do a presentation so you all know and give you all the details at the next commission
So
meeting.
that's
Sounds good.
June 23.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right.
Okay?
All right. So sounds good. All right.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie.
Commission comments. Commissioner Brandon.
Yeah, just a quick one. Condolences out to my girlfriend Betty Soko, who lost her sister. She's in Ohio and their viewing is going to be Friday, but she'll be staying there for a while. That's all.
Commissioner Harris.
Yeah, maybe the vice mayor who was on the task force could clarify the news that came out today about COVID, whether it's whether someone is pre-symptomatic, post-symptomatic, asymptomatic, or no symptomatic, and what's going to happen with the 50% of the capacity that people are asking about. And there's just so many unknowns right now that we just don't know. So everybody needs to be careful that they follow the social distancing, the wearing of the mask, and everybody just be safe out there and get through it. That's all.
Commissioner James.
I don't have many comments. Just a reminder of the Justice March at 4 p.m. on Thursday at C.W. Thomas Park. Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
That's a very lengthy question you asked.
Sure is.
Harris. And if you've seen me go off screen several times tonight, it's because I'm ill and I've had to continue to go off screen and probably need to go very shortly. But in a non-COVID related kind of way. But it is something that's very very upsetting. It's very obvious to, I think, most of us that we're living in this time that our grandchildren are going to be talking about when something that changed the country happened, and then immediately after something happened that changed the country again. And we're rightly very caught up in this, and all trying to figure out where we fit in the conversation, and how to do the right thing and what that looks like. But at the same time, our numbers are rising in Florida, and that's very frightening for those of us who were concerned about this all along. So I think as a city, probably maybe the city manager, the rest of the team maybe need to have probably a phone call soon. And did you hear that, city manager? Maybe the task force would get together and on the phone and talk sometime soon. And update and remind this is COVID is still happening. Just because maybe the seem as frightening as it did, it is still out there. And next week might, with the numbers increasing, it might seem a little bit more important. So I would say continue to be vigilant in it. And, I hope we remain tethered to science and medical professionals to guide us in this. That's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a few things just to give everybody some updates. As I mentioned at the last meeting, I've been on a task force to deal with the CARES Act funding. And basically a presentation was given to the county commissioners, and letters and so forth have all been sent. And we've also been communicating with our own representatives as well from the county to implore them to give us the money to the cities directly. The way that this works is basically there's money that's going to the county. It is not distributed to cities that are under 500,000 people, which is pretty much everybody in the county. So they're basically keeping the money. They seem to want to keep the money to do programs through the county as opposed to distributing it out to individual cities. We chair for the task force is Mayor Levy from Hollywood. He did a presentation to the county commission last week, basically laying out what we were all asking them to do and giving them specific things that we wanted to do and basically assuring that accountability would be had. So that seems to be the main issue. Basically, at this point, we're kind of waiting for the governor to respond and tell the counties what to do. And if we don't hear from them, probably, I think it's by later this week, the county's probably going to make a decision to do with it what they will, regardless of what we say. So we're hopeful, but not that hopeful as far as what's going to happen with that money. We would like to see it come to the individual cities so that it would help us pay for some of the COVID expenses specifically. There have been a lot of them from every city, but unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll see. You never know. In addition, with everything that's been happening since George Floyd, I've been reaching out. I reached out to the Clergy Alliance about shortly after the video came out, and talked to them about ideas and things that we could do as a city to help address issues within our city, within the county, anything that we could do, and had a very good dialogue started. Did include, they asked specifically to have our city manager and chief of police at the meeting. So we had another meeting after the initial meeting, and it was a very good dialogue, I think, overall. And I'm hoping that it will continue. I know that it is something that the Clergy Alliance has asked to continue, and I'd like to see where it goes from there. I've also talked to the sheriff, which is one of the reasons why he presented tonight, because I reached out to him to find out some more things about what they're doing, what he's doing for the county, for BSO specifically, since we had BSO in our city. And as you heard, some of the things tonight that he was talking about, those were all things that I know ended up being part of a plan that has been put forth through the county as well. I've also been speaking with some mayors and other electeds from other cities that are not under BSO contract in particular, and discussing things that they're doing in those cities as well in order to try to address some of the problems that, although I do think that, I personally think that our city, our BSO deputies do a pretty good job and have a number of programs in order to try to work with the community. There's always room for improvement. And this is obviously a crisis that is going on and has been going on throughout the country. And so whatever we can do to be a part of the change and part of the solution to it and not part of the problem, I think we should do. So that's what I've been trying to do. I've also reached out to some of our federal representatives as well as our state representatives. Federal, they have some things in mind, but there's things move slowly there, unfortunately. With our state representatives, I had a really, really productive conversation with one of our representatives, Evan Jenny, who I think all of you know. His father was BSO sheriff previously, so he has a different way of looking at this as well. And before, what he told me was that immediately after the video came out of George Floyd, he immediately put together a group of people to start working on plans and ways to address the problems, the things that need to be changed. He has already been working on these things. I'm going to continue my dialogue with him and continue to provide him with more information. I've been speaking with residents. I've been speaking with people that I know just in general to get some additional ideas. If anybody has any thoughts on things that they think need to be included, I would strongly suggest you to provide any comment that you have on it, because they can't put anything out until November, because that's when sessions starts again. So in the meantime, they're basically putting together a number of different items to be put into bills, whether it's one bill or multiple bills. to then go forward from there, and be ready for November. A lot of people are jumping on this at this point. So the more ideas, the more issues that need to be addressed, the better. Some of the ideas that he has have to do with banning chokeholds, which actually, as the sheriff said, has already been in place here in Broward County, but they want to do it statewide. So that's one of the things. That's an obvious one. Having a database to track individual officers as well as individual agencies that have use of force, excessive use of force complaints, to see if there's a particular pattern, if there's certain departments, for example, that are having a problem more so than others. It's something that can be addressed. Also talking about doing a permanent revocation of certification for law enforcement, so that if somebody is fired in one location because of excessive use of force, they can't just simply go and get a job at the next town over, because that's been a problem. And that's something that would definitely have some consequences to it. They're looking at the individual, there's sovereign immunity, which I don't know how familiar everybody is with sovereign immunity, but it's a legal term, and they're looking at issues with sovereign immunity and the amounts of that as well. One of the things that was also discussed was not defunding the police, but demilitarizing the police, and dealing with the way it was explained was the excess types of military use, equipment and so forth, and trying to refocus back to the actual community policing and actually not making it as much of a military option as it has been in some places. So just a few things. There's more that we talked about. And the list is growing. Like I said, I'm planning on having further discussions, and I'm getting more and more information from other people that I'm speaking with that I can present. And I, like I said, I'd be open to anybody providing with additional input on that. I have a number of friends who have actually had some very specific things happen to them that were unjust, and they quite frankly are lucky that some of them are still here. And I'm taking the advice from people who have been in that position to be able to share that information and make sure that we're getting it to the right place. Because obviously we need to change, and it needs to come from a lot of different locations, not just here, but in so that it's something that's consistent, and we need to do it. If we have to start in Florida, start in Broward County, that's fine, but we need to make it. We really need to make it countrywide. But we'll do what we can at this point, and I can assure you that I have been really focusing on this. It's pretty much been my focus for the last 2 weeks, and primarily that. On another note, there is a food distribution tomorrow at St. Ruth's Missionary Baptist Church. They got a truck in this afternoon. They gave out a whole bunch of boxes of food tonight, apparently, but they have more for tomorrow. Starts at 10 o'clock at the church, and it looks like it might be an ongoing thing where they're going to be having regular deliveries. I know some of the logistics of that are being worked out, but it looks like it's going to be something that's going to be ongoing. It was a huge truck. I went over there when it came in, and I mean, a huge amount of, let's see how many, I had a text earlier telling me how much was handed out, and I'll tell you how much was handed out tonight. 1,200 boxes today, just tonight. And they still have more for tomorrow. So it's a good thing, and it's on Northwest 5th Street, 5th Avenue. So that's open as well. Other than that, thank you, and that's all I have for tonight. Let's see. We next have appointments. Does anybody have anybody for appointments? For anything?
Why? No,
They're there.
that's something.
Okay. I don't see any hands being raised.
Do I still have my planning and zoning appointment, or did I fill that at the last meeting?
You filled it.
You filled
I
it.
filled it. Okay.
Tell it.
Okay, okay, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, Kelly.
What are we gonna do with number 5, Mayor?
Um,
And fire pension.
I asked, we went back and I asked to have the woman who sent in the letter, because she doesn't really have a resume, been a business owner for many years. I asked to have something more substantial provided. I have not received anything as of yet. So people are not jumping at that right now. It's a lot, it is a lot of responsibility. And
It is.
I mean, I do think that somebody who's been a business owner for many, many years understands finances and understands budgets and understands how that all works. But if we need more information, then we need more information. So I don't know what else to tell you. If you have any ideas, you have anybody that you want to bring in, Commissioner Harris? You're muted. There you go. Okay.
I was just gonna say that maybe we hold off on the appointments because we don't know when the boards are gonna be able to meet. It's gonna be August or September.
I think the Police and Fire Pension Board has been doing some sort of Zoom meetings or something because they have deadlines, specific deadlines that they have to meet for things.
The P and Z board is meeting next Wednesday,
Virtually.
for the first time. So I want to make sure that everybody who's on that board is contacted and how to go through the process, because I had a lot of calls and somebody who doesn't know, exactly how to zoom in on the meeting, that they get some instruction beforehand.
Attorney?
Yeah, I can tell you, Commissioner, that Eve and I are working to, first of all, have a practice session like we did for the City Commission zoning issues to teach the Planning and Zoning Board how to do a virtual meeting. And then on all the information, all the signs, all the notifications in the paper and all the postings, tell people how to call in and participate from the public. So it'll be no different than what we do here, but we're prepared to do that. But we're going to train all the members, including the Vice Mayor's new appointee.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Administrative report, City Manager?
Yes, and I'm going to be as quick as possible. But really, really exciting. And I just found out about this today. But since the whole COVID-19 came about, we've been trying to see if we can get a testing site for free here for our community. And I just found out today. That's why I only told you today, because I found out today. But we're going to be able to have 3 weeks of testing here, and I'll send out the details and we'll put it in social media. James Turchetta from Broward Health met with us earlier today, and we'll be able to do for the next 3 weeks until we start summer camp, and it'll be commencing next Thursday. We're going to do Thursday, Friday, Saturday from 12 to 6. Then the following week is going to be again Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the 25th, 26th, and 27th from 12 to 6. And then the following week, which is a week of 4th of July, we're going to go with Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and that's also going to be from 12 to 6. So we worked out the logistics. It's going to be here in our parking garage, and I'll send you all the details, but it'll be for free. The only resources that we have to put in is 5 employees, which we're all going to take turn. We're going to start with the manager's office, myself and Candido and Chris and Linda. So that we'll get started next week, and we'll put the word out. But they can drive up and park at our garage, ride their bicycles, walk up, and it'll be right here at City Hall. In addition to that, I wanted to let you know that I sent a memo to Arnaldo from the casino based on your directive, and I think it was Commissioner James that brought it up in regards to making sure that we supported Arnaldo. So I sent him a memo. He has submitted his game plan also to Bertha Henry, the county administrator, and he'll be ready to go as soon as the county approved the next game plan. I also wanted to let you know, and it'll come forward at the next commission meeting, that everything in regards to COVID will be totally adhered to here at this site as we prepare for summer camp. And after summer camp, when we begin to take the steps to open, including the commission chambers, And that'll come forward because that's an additional investment, and that'll come forward next week. I also wanted to let you know that the entire city wall here in our community is being worked on as we speak. And that is a Broward project, but we're working with them to make sure that it gets done here for our city and for our residents. I also wanted to let you know that all our senior positions have been filled and everybody's ready to go. So, and the rest of the details you will see in my report. I look forward to continuing to work with you, to getting better, to getting your feedback, and to continue to move the city forward. So thank you for everything. I appreciate it.
Commissioner James?
Yes, I had a question about the on-site testing.
Yes.
Do you know if it's possible that maybe after a busy 4th of July weekend, I'm not sure of what we're expecting, especially on our beaches and in our communities, do you think that it's possible that we can have an additional day after the 4th instead of before the 4th?
You know, we can actually have it, as we have it scheduled and maybe get an additional day, or maybe I'm going to try to get an additional week or an additional 3 days. Because I don't think it's going to interfere with summer camp, but that's why we stopped it right before the 4th, because on the 6th, we want to get the summer camps moving, but we'll make it happen. We'll see.
No, if it doesn't make sense, it's fine. I just was thinking about like the amount of people that are out and about during those types of weekends during the holidays, and if it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, just don't mess with it. It's fine.
No, look, you know what? I'll come back to you and I'll let you know, listen, we were able to make it happen or we cannot, and here's why. Because we also want to deliver that summer camp for you all as well. But that's something that we will consider, and I'll discuss that with them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you so much, City Manager. As I know, this is something that you and I have kind of been working on, and I haven't stopped talking about for 77 days. So to finally have this work out is really wonderful for the city. As I have continued to say, I believe that our city is under-tested, and we have most likely more positive residents than we know about right now. And having them identified is so important in one, slowing any further progression that we have, and two, making sure that those residents get the treatment that they need so that they don't endure any undue suffering. My question for you is, you said it started on what day?
From here in our parking garage. Tomorrow, the Broward Health is going to give me the number that our residents can call for our appointments. They have up to 250 tests per day. So let's say they have 200 appointments, then there'll be 50 additional tests, or they have 100 appointments. So more details coming tomorrow, but I just wanted to share this with you all today.
And how are we keeping any employees like in that area? How are we keeping them safe, as we're going to have in that area, presumably a larger than normal cluster of possible positive patients?
Right. So we will all have all the PPEs necessary, and Broward Health will bring that forward to us and prepare us. We will, and Candido was here, he's my logistics king this morning, to be able to keep the separate tables where all the stations are going to be. The folks are going to come in one area and they're going to exit another area. So thank you for asking that question, but every attention to detail will be taken care of.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. City Attorney?
I received a message this past Saturday sent by one of the deputy county attorneys to all the city attorneys. We, by the way, have been on meeting with the county attorneys and all the city attorneys every week to discuss issues with the emergency orders. So we have a very good dialogue going on. The thing that caught me by surprise, it was sent on a Saturday for 3 ballot questions coming up for referendum next November by the county. One is to have a county mayor elected, which we always expected. Number 2, however, is a proposal to modify the current county charter on use of county parks to allow regional parks. We don't have any in here, but there's 14 of them to be used for declared states of emergency for public health and safety purposes, such as medical testing and food supply, logistical staging, and emergency communications infrastructure, if approved by the board. I think that's one way of saying that the tower they've always wanted to get into Hollywood and Westlake Park will now be a way to get that in there over the objections of the residents there and the city of Hollywood. That's their issue, not ours. I'm more concerned with the next ballot question, which is at a fourth type of way that the county already has super majority control over us as to zoning and land use questions and a couple other things. This is to add a new one where a county ordinance would prevail over a city ordinance. The amendment addresses development on county property of regional facilities. For example, surtax funded regional transportation intended to serve a public purpose. But they could also do public safety infrastructure, government offices, public facilities used primarily to or exclusively promote tourism. What it means is they can preempt any county lands in the city. I've already identified 15, and we would not be able to control what they put there. This is something I find really alarming because you just don't want to be preempted on our ordinances. So they got some blowback from some of us, and they said, okay, well, they're working on an amendment that would say areas currently zoned residential as of June would not be subject to this provision unless the city agrees to modify the zoning or allow the proposed use. That's if it's in residential. I don't think any of the 15 sites that the county owns here, and the two I can think of offhand are the bus facility out on Ravenswood Road, the water plant out on Griffin Road. Corinne found 14 others that would qualify. So the county could put in something, we couldn't object, they get to put it in there. Supposedly limited uses. It'll be a referendum question this November. And it's on the ballot, on the county commission agenda a week from tonight. We just got notice of it. So it's unfortunately, I love some of these people at the county, but they give you, as we all know, last minute notice to deal with stuff. And it's kind of distressing, but we're going to monitor what they're doing. And we might have to work up our way with the citizens here to oppose this on the referendum if we think it's going to go south on us. Anything that could be put in our city on a county land could be a problem.
Can each of us get a copy?
Yeah, I can send you. It's a very long ballot.
No,
question.
no, not that. I'm talking about the properties.
Yes, I can send those to you. Sure.
Yeah, I want to see them too. So
Okay.
that when we talk to our residents, like you're suggesting, we know where we're talking about.
Yeah, it'll be county-owned lands in the city.
Okay, yeah, I would like to have a copy of one.
Okay, I'll send it to everybody in a summary of what I just said.
Commissioner Harris, you had your hand up.
One more thing, this is kind of hard to get used to the idea, but from the city of Hollywood today, one of the commissioners, I heard that they will probably be canceling 4th of July fireworks because number one, the large assemblage of crowds on the beach and social distancing, plus the cost. It costs almost $100,000 to put the barges in place and do the fireworks. So just get people used to the idea, which is very, very sad that they won't be having fireworks on the 4th of July in probably any city.
No, they're having 4th of July fireworks in Margate.
They are?
Yes.
Then everybody's going to Margate.
Yeah. That's the only place that I've heard of them going forward. Okay, city clerk, reminders.
Upcoming meeting reminder, Tuesday, June 23rd at 7 p.m. is your regular city commission meeting. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. With that, we're adjourned.
Good night.
Good night.
I'll be up to sign and everything in a minute.
Okay.